All right. Good morning. This is Mackenzie Franklin from SideGame LLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Now, today we're going to be doing a side conversation where we talk about the Dice Tower Awards from 2020 and just kind of the thoughts in general of 2020 games, their picks, and how we're feeling about, 2020 games 6 months after the end of the year. So we've had time to play lots of games, and we're going to go ahead and dive in with just the first list, and the conversation is going to kind of evolve through that. So let's go ahead and start with the first part of the list. So let's pull up the. Let's go ahead and pull up the Dice Tower Awards here. All right, so on the Dice Tower website, they have a great resource where you can see all sorts of different lists, and this is going to be that first award. So right off the bat, they're talking about the most innovative game. So winner was The Crew Quest for Planet 9. The Crew is a game where you're playing cooperatively, and it's a trick-taking game. And that's kind of the big thing behind it, is that it's taken this idea of trick-taking games, which sometimes are team-based, but generally competitive, and they've basically distilled it into a very simple game where many people can play with lots of different levels of difficulty. So I could definitely see how this could be innovative in a certain point of view. But the nominees here for this game are things like the Forgotten Waters game. This one is a storytelling game where you play as pirates, has this really interesting worker placement and this app integration and great narrative storytelling. It's really fun. More of a storytelling game than a game itself. Micro Macro Crime City. This one has you playing as kind of Where's Waldo, but in the premise of a murder mystery. So you're using all of your information here in order to solve questions about a case. We've got some people joining the chat. Fatal Paper Cut, good morning. Thanks so much for joining. Thank you so much. All right. So Macro Micro Crime City, I think, is actually pretty revolutionary in the crime solving space, but it does use that pre-existing framework. Next is Search for Planet X. This is one I actually have not played yet. A friend of mine owns a copy. We're hoping to play it soon. This one has you playing deduction with app integration to assist with said deduction. I think it's a great theme, good use of app. And then Whistle Mountain, worker placement game where you're going to kind of be building the board and building the spots as you play. Very cool. Has like a drowning mechanism where water is rising. So out of these five for most innovative game for me, I could definitely see where The Crew comes in, but I don't think it's as strong. I think for app integration, Forgotten Waters and Search for Planet X are very high up there. I think Whistle Mountain is a strong game that I don't think it's incredibly innovative with what it's doing. And Macro Micro Crime City is extremely innovative in that crime-solving space, because that doesn't exist. And so if it were my opinion, I would probably pick Macro Micro, because I think it does something so fresh, so new. It has this extremely interesting mechanism that really runs the whole thing that is fresh and new. And I can see many games using it in the future here. So for my choice, I would pick Macro Micro Crime City. If you have any questions on this, if you have any ideas on who you thought should have won most innovative board game, please let me know in the comments and I'll make sure to highlight them here. Now, one other thing, while we're talking about this, I would love to kind of go over some games that I have played from 2020 and see if anything should have made this list that wasn't on the nomination. So we're talking about the most innovative game. So let's go ahead and look. So I'm going to share my BGG, the library from this specific year. And let's take a look to see what could have made that list potentially. So Gloomhaven, Jaws of the Lion, probably not. Dune Imperium, Lost Ruins of Arnak, I would probably say no, because there's so many games that kind of follow this pattern now. I don't think any of these particulars stand out. Legacy Season 0 follows that same format. Viscounts, Praga. So we've played about 55 games, I think, from 2020. And like most reviewers and most people who are in the board game industry, they're going to tell you, or just hobbyists in general, are going to tell you, there's no way we're going to play all these games. So we've played a lot that we could, but for this, I'm taking a look for some more. I do think Macro Micro is pretty high up there. Project Elite Real Time is pretty great, but once again, Real Time isn't particularly innovative. Etherfields is definitely not super innovative. I do like the combination of Kingdom Rush, but once again, that has been done. Polyominoes are a pretty big mainstay in the hobby now. One other thing is Fox on the Force Duet came out this same year as The Crew, and it also is a cooperative trick-taking game. So it definitely doesn't have the extreme level differences, so I can see why that is there. Warp's Edge is another one that's kind of friendly. Cloud Age, I think, is pretty sweet. It has this really interesting mechanism where you're sliding in sleeves into the cards. But once again, that's a single mechanism, an entire game. So looking back at these, I'm probably going to stick with my guts here and probably go with Micro Macro Crime City, because the entire game is based around that single mechanism of the map, right? Of the Where's Waldo mechanic. And that has not been seen really in any game. Nothing is driving that. And I think it's so unique. I think it's so different. That is what I would go for. So that's my opinion here. And Scylla, she says that she struggled to pay the price for Macro Micro. I can definitely see that. So especially with it being out of print, that thing is very costly. Hopefully it is being reprinted for sure, as a new expansion is also being released, and that's pretty fantastic. So hopefully you're able to get it for a discounted price, maybe from a major online retailer or something like that. So I hope you can find it. I do think it is a fantastic game. It got a 9 out of 10 from me. You can play with anybody, and any gamer from all varieties can enjoy it. So I recommend that one. So that would be my choice for most innovative game. Let's go ahead and jump back to the list here, and let's jump on the next category. And once again, if you have anything to add about this, please mention it in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts on who should have won the innovative game, or just in general, any of these awards. So once again, we'll jump back to the Dice Tower page here, and we're just going to scroll up this list today. All right, our next one here is Excellence in Rules Teachings. And this is kind of funny. There's no additional nominations here for the rules teachings, and you really can't disagree with this one. Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion set up this incredible narrative, like it's in the narrative, how to play the game. And it's really cool. They actually change the cards you're using. They reduce the amount of different information that you're kind of using. They have it laid out perfectly for you. I played about 15 scenarios of Jaws of the Lion. It's not as gripping as as Gloomhaven itself, because there's no retirement mechanic and no like continual progression, in my opinion. But I do think that this is a great way to learn Gloomhaven, especially for somebody who's going to pick it up at Target. And I do think it's a great game for people that enjoy this style. I love the tactical combat. I love the cards. And I think that this narrative is going to be used in many games to come. So right off the bat, one game that just funded on Kickstarter, not Kickstarter, GameFound, Robinson Crusoe. So Robinson Crusoe is implementing this system in their new thing, in their new edition. So Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion, it is fantastic in their rules teaching there. So I can't diss this one. Let's go ahead and go forward. So up next we have the best welcoming game, Isle of Cats. Now I really like Isle of Cats. This is a great game. It has some incredible drafting, and I really like drafting in games in general. I love setting up puzzle pieces and watching them knock down. I really enjoy the different types of cards. I love how you get to decide what your scoring conditions are, and that's probably my favorite part of the game, is you have all these lesson cards, and some of them are bonkers. Some of them are, ooh, maybe I can do that. Or some of them are like, ooh, I'm going to base my whole game around it. And it's really cool because you get to decide what you take. So I love that aspect of this game. I also like that there are multiple versions in the same box. You can play the family mode, you can play the main mode with the draft variant. It even has a roll and write that's on its way, and all the new expansion content just got released. So if you really like this game, there's even more for it. The artwork is fantastic. I think that Frank West did a great job with Isle of Cats. So I could definitely see this here. But let's go ahead and take a look at some of these other best welcoming game nominees. So we also have Calico. This is it's a tile lane game where you're going to be kind of making these quilted patterns for cats, trying to attract them in. You have My City, another polyomino game, but this is a legacy style game where you're going to be going from, tiny expansion to tiny expansion and learning more of the game as you play. We have Scooby-Doo Escape from the Haunted Mansion. This is an escape room style game set in the Scooby-Doo universe. And then Trekking the World. So this is a kind of a reprint / a new standalone game based on trekking the national parks. And that one did receive some positive buzz. And for all of these games, I've actually only played one. So let's take a look at my overall list here. And let's see what other games could have potentially followed in this category. Oh, 1 second. And once again, if you have any thoughts on this, have any of you played any of those other games? Trekking the World, Calico. I've heard so many good things about Calico, and I've had no opportunities to play it. It's been one that has been there, but somebody's always picked something else. So maybe I will play that one soon. Let's hope so. So let's look at these. I would say maybe for family game, Truffle Shuffle may be an option. For me, I'm really not that enamored with the game. It wasn't something that was crazy good to me. I think Sonorum may be fine. 5-Minute Mystery, a very interesting real-time game. I still think that Isle of Cats is probably stronger than these. And let's see, Mysterium Park, I think, is an extremely good welcoming game. It takes the idea of Mysterium, but condenses it down into something that's much more manageable. So I really like that one. Let's see. Santa Monica, I felt, was very inviting. I felt like that one has a very chill theme. I can see a lot of people enjoying that one. One of my brothers and his wife's favorites, so they showed us there while we were down there visiting. Macro Micro is surprisingly welcoming as well, because the mechanics are so simple. You can literally learn how to play on the box. It'd be a shame if that swept every award, but I mean, it happens sometimes. So, I mean, we can see that. And we have Jamie here. He is commenting that Isle of Cats and Calico seem good, but he's burned out on puzzle games, and I can definitely see that. There's been a huge influx of those. Polyominoes have been like a mechanic that some people just add. It kind of reminds me of how deck building was a while ago, where everything was a deck builder. This kind of reminds me of that, where now everything is just kind of finding a way to fit in tiles and polyominoes. So it's interesting. So I can see where you're coming from, Jamie. All right. Any other welcoming games? Maybe Nidavellir might qualify. Honestly, Forgotten Waters might qualify. They're very simple mechanics. I could definitely see those being in that area. Let's see. Anything else here? No, I think that would be it. So from that list and from the list available, and if you'll notice, Isle of Cats did not show up on this list because technically Isle of Cats came out at the end of 2019. So it came out in December, I think. But I think they bumped it on this because most people did receive their retail copies in 2020. So with that in mind, I think that Isle of Cats is a very strong choice, and that's probably something that I would go with. I think that Micro Macro actually has a very good chance of getting into that welcoming category. Once again, this is a game you can play with your mom, your grandpa, your parents, anybody that just has a passing interest. One really cool story that I love to tell is that when I purchased the game, the person who sold it to me said, "Hey, this is such a fantastic game. I have a friend who has plastered it. They've completely framed the whole game, put it on the wall of their reception desk at their workplace. And when people are waiting, they'll give them cards. And they literally play Macro Micro in the waiting room while they're waiting for their appointments. And I think that is so cool because literally anybody can just pick up a set of cards, enjoy the puzzle that is this giant game. So it's something that I'm actually extremely tempted to do with because we are getting that new space very soon. And I think that'd be really awesome to just completely frame that entire picture. And I think that'd be so cool. It would keep the game forever. And I think that's really neat. And it could be something that you switch out with the new expansions and whatnot, because I assume that the map is going to be the same size. Let's hope so. Otherwise, the whole plan is ruined. Let's go ahead and take a look at our next category. So I think that they did a good job with picking Isle of Cats. That drafting mechanism is really fun, and I think it's a great, fresh way to do it. It's not all about just filling things up, which I think is great. All right, up next is Best Two-Player Game. So this is Undaunted North Africa. So Undaunted is a fantastic system. I have not played North Africa, but I have played Normandy. And it is a scenario-based system that is by the designers of War Chest. So War Chest is a game where you're going to be, taking poker chips, putting into a bag, and then drawing those and seeing what happens. This is the same thing, but deck building. So you'll have your deck of cards. Each of your cards represents a unit on this map. And when you play a card, you can, have it do one of its assigned actions. You can move around, you can take a shot, and that's based on what you're drawing. So you have that controlled randomness, right? You have randomness where you are going to be drawing the cards in specific orders, but you also get to control it because you are deciding what cards to recruit, how many of each cards are going to be in your deck, and if you're going to maybe make your deck smaller, you can eliminate units, and when those units are eliminated, the cards are removed. So you have lots of cool options here with kind of deciding what you're going to do. The one game that I have played of this, though, I did get really lucky. So I won in maybe the first 3 turns, something like that. Because that can totally happen, right? Maybe you have you see a point where somebody has played a card and they only have a couple of those in their deck. You can make a break for it. And then hopefully when they take that reshuffle, they miss the card that they need to react to whatever you're doing. And so that can happen in this game. And it's only 2 players. So if that does happen, it can definitely lean one way over the other. So I think that's longer scenarios are probably going to have things in place to stop that. But that's totally a thing that can happen in this game. But the game is fun. I love the system of the deck building and kind of working your cards or your units. I think that's wonderful. I really like that. It's one of the reasons I love War Chest so much, is because it does the same thing, but bag building. I'm not as big of a fan of the scenarios in this one. I love the War Chest thing where you just kind of draft the characters and the abilities. This one, the abilities are kind of the same, but Normandy does not include some of the additional components in North Africa. North Africa comes with vehicles. It also comes with, this whole entire new setting. So they've had some time to refine the system, and I think that's great. So I could definitely see this winning that 2-player category, but let's see what it was facing off against. The other things we have here are Cosmic Encounter Duel, Curious Cargo, Fox in the Forest Duet, and Imperial Struggle. Now, out of these 5, I've only played Fox in the Forest Duet, so I can't speak to the others. The reason I stayed away from Cosmic Encounter Duel is because me personally, I don't really play 2-player games, and I don't really see them having a good place in our library. And so that's really why I can't speak much to this category. So if you have any thoughts or opinions on these games, I'd love to hear them. But this one in particular, Cosmic Encounter Duel, it's taking the idea of Cosmic Encounter, which is all about the interaction and the crazy powers and how they interact, and kind of shrinking it down to where those powers are going to be, entities in the game as opposed to other players. So I thought that was a little interesting. Not extremely positive buzz on this one. Next was Curious Cargo, which is, I think it's a smaller version of Pipeline. And this one, I heard some thoughts from, I believe it was either Dan or it was maybe John from John Gets Games, saying that this one was very tedious and very back and forth. It's like missed the mark that Watergate set the precedent for. Get some coffee. And then we have Fox in the Forest, which I have played, and I do enjoy that one. It is not the most deep game in the world. It's definitely, but it is fun. It's a great way to play something small and trick-taking. It has this little map that you're playing on. I do enjoy that one. Definitely not the best game in the world, but also fun. Andy Sumter says that Targi is a great 2-player only game. Ooh, I've heard so many good things about this. This is actually on my recent top 10 games that I need to play that are out already, and Targi made it very high on that list. So yes, I really want to try this one. I'm not sure what year it came out. I'm not sure it came out 2020. I think it's been out longer than that, but definitely one that I really want to try. Next is Imperial Struggle. This is sequel to Twilight Struggle. Once again, not as well received as the first. I think maybe because that fan base is so strong for the original. And then, of course, Undaunted North Africa. So I can definitely see the North Africa winning here. Let's go ahead and take a look at some other things that may be 2-player only games. And let's look back at the games we've played this year. So let's pull back up the BGG page. All right. So once again, this is not really a category that I'm going to fall into. Most of my games that I play are, 1 to 5 or 1 to 6, because we do try to keep it so that player count is pretty fluctuating in the library, so we can, fit a lot of people in. This one here, I'm not seeing a lot that are going to be 2-player only. I don't think there are any, actually. Shalia plays more than 2, but I think I only played it at 2. So yep, that's it. So everything that I've actually played this year has not been 2-player outside of Fox in the Forest Duet. So there's that. If anybody else has any thoughts to add to this, I'd love to hear them. But otherwise, we're going to go ahead and continue on, and let's go ahead and take a look at the next award here. Let me bring the screen back up. All right, our next award is going to be for Best Theming. So Best Theming went to Forgotten Waters. So this just means that, your game breathes whatever it's trying to portray. Now, Forgotten Waters is a pirate game. It is a mystical, magical pirate game, and it does it so well. So it's pretty great, actually. So my favorite thing in this entire game has to be the narration. So it's been happening a lot recently, particularly with the Foreteller app. People have been implementing narration in their games. They've done it with Madara, they've done it with Gloomhaven. Most recently, Chronicles of Junagor has announced that they're doing a narration in their game. Fantastic. And this one in here, you're going to notice lots of voice actors from very popular media things. So one thing that you'll find is one of my favorite guys, I love listening to his voice, Prosdy. Sungwon. He's really interested in the board game hobby. He actually appeared on some Dice Tower lists, and he does some of the characters for this game. And I thought that was fantastic. He's one of the captains. You can definitely tell it's his voice, but very good professional voice acting in this game, and just a joy to listen to. The app integration is also not incredibly annoying. I find app integration in games kind of takes me out of games, particularly in things like Mansions of Madness or Chronicles of Crime. I feel like that's really all I'm doing. But in this, you're simply typing a number, and then you listen, and then you're looking at everybody else else, you're kind of looking at your board and looking at your own little story that you've constructed in front of yourself, and the narration is going in the background. And I really like that. So I can see how this wins best theming. You have these giant artwork pieces that you're kind of looking at as you play. You're finding treasure that would be in this fantastical era, and you're also going through a story that guides this simplified gameplay. So this is a fun one. I do like Forgotten Waters. Once again, not my favorite game in the world, but theming is so strong here. And let's go ahead and take a look at some of the other nominees. So the nominees here, Dune Imperium. Now, I was quite impressed. So I have not read any of the Dune books. I'll be straight up there. But I have been engrossed in this lore. I have a friend who's very much interested in the Dune universe. He's kind of sat me down and explained to me. I've played the original Dune game many times, and I've played Dune Imperium many times. And I've played this game with him, and he was quite impressed that how much it was connected to the story while being a completely different game than the original Dune. And I think that's quite impressive that you're able to have a theme that translates so well into a deck building game. Now, I do prefer Dune Imperium to base game Dune. It might be a little controversial take, but I do think that the theming is surprisingly great here. I love how each character has a power that represents kind of what they're doing in the space. I love how you have that cycle of trades, and I love the different cards on different parts of the planets. I think it's so cool, and I love how the effects really represent the houses that they're tied to. So really awesome. I do like the theme in Dune Imperium a lot. Mariposas, I've heard great things about, one I have not played. Mariposas is a Elizabeth Hargrave game. This one has you basically following the migration patterns of butterflies. And from everything that I've heard from it, it is to the T. Hey, this is the actual patterns. Like, you watch them travel, you're going to the different places, you see them like imitate their breeding patterns. The entire book, rule book, has like information about why this is working. That is so cool to me, and I think that's great. Once again, another spot on theming game. So I could definitely see that one taking it as well, because that theme is so strong. Once again, this one's not necessarily about the best gameplay; it's about that theme. Pan Am, I have not played, but once again, I've heard very good things about this one. You've got that whole entire air company that you're working on, and I believe you're working on shares. I will need to probably look into a little bit more about this one. If anybody has played Pan Am, I'd love to hear some thoughts on the comments. But once again, one that I heard some okay buzz for, but nothing incredibly good. Before we move on to Super Skill Pinball, we have Scylla. She's commenting here. Never played the original Dune, but Imperium gave me that sense of struggle for spice I felt in the book. Great theme in the game. And I agree. I think it totally works. And it's so neat. And I love the little tiny things, particularly like when you claim the strongholds, like the specific sites are tied to certain battles. I love how each card kind of feels like it. If you go to the Spacing Guild, of course they can go anywhere. They're the Spacing Guild. They have control of the different ships and whatnot. So they're going to obviously be able to take you around the map. It's so cool. I love that. I love how the Harkonnen, the bad guys, they're going to be constantly getting the intrigue cards, and I think that's super fun. I like playing that faction. That's my favorite. But yes, I totally agree with you, Scylla. I think it's really cool. It makes me really like that world. It's really funny because the more I play like Dune property games, the more I really like this world. And it's really funny because I have no interest in reading the book, but I love this world of this game. So and my friends have told me to not watch the old school Dune movie, because they said, no, just wait for the new one, because the old one is apparently very weird or very trippy or very boring, or maybe a mix of all three. The soundtrack is pretty great. I love that Toto's done that, but we'll see how it is in the future. Up next, we have Super Skill Pinball 4K. Now, this one I have played, and I do think it does a great job at kind of implementing pinball into a roll and write style. I don't think it's super thematic. I think it gets to points in the game where if you're doing well, it can get kind of boring, particularly with the bumper concept. So there's 4 different boards, though, but there's like a part in the game where if you hit a specific thing, you'll get some points, and then it moves to the left, and you'll get some more points, and then it moves back. The best play is to just keep doing that, but it's pretty dang boring when you just kind of cross things out over and over and over again, and you're not really doing anything exciting or making big choices. So that thing is like, I think that's probably the most attracting, because in a game of pinball, bumpers are and it's just over, right? Like that's exciting. I like that, but I think that's probably the worst thing that translates. And unfortunately, that kind of permeates 3 of the 4 boards. So I hope it does improve in future boards. So when I do play this game, I only play the one board that actually doesn't have that issue, where you're not kind of moving on the bumpers. But that's kind of my opinion on this. I do think it's a good game, though, and I do like how they have like little pinballs for the markers. Like they're these nice like flat, rounded, shiny pinballs. They're pretty cool. So I think these are great choices. We have Fatal Papercut here. He's mentioning on Dune. For the time it came out, the old Dune movie was pretty great. Awesome. Okay, good. Now, is this one that I should take some time to go see, or do I wait for the new one? What would you think on that? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that one. So that's all of the nominations. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the other nominations here. Or sorry, I guess the games that I've played, and see if they would fit that nomination. So remember, this is best theming in a game. So first off, let's go with Lost Ruins of Arnak. So this is very jungle-y. The mechanics, not so much jungle-y, but I could definitely see how that could potentially make it just for, it kind of drips with like this awesome artwork, and these components are great. I really enjoy it. So I would think that this could also be included. Same thing with Pandemic Legacy Season 0. That theme is strong, man. Like, I'm not gonna give any spoilers here, but it sets out to do exactly what it wants, and it does it in such a good way. From the moment you open up the board, you see that you are in this specific time period of Cold War, and everything you're doing is related to that. I think it's so good. So if you want something that really is going to engross you, it is actually a fantastic time. Pandemic Legacy Season 0. It's pretty great. My counts, probably not. This one is pretty abstracted. Same thing with Praga. Praga, the gameplay is abstracted, but I think the theme is actually pretty strong. I like how in Praga you are actually building Prague, and there's even like this this history book in the back of the rule book that's going to tell you exactly what you're building and why you're building it and why the resources you're using are used. That's so cool. I love when games do that. One of my favorite things. We were playing Simlio yesterday, and Simlio, on every card it tells you the what person is behind each card. And I love that. Little tidbits like that. Or trivia games, they give you answers, and they explain the answers and why a certain thing is that. So I love stuff like that. Next, Dwellings of Eldervale. I would think that this one is probably function over mechanics, or sorry, function over theme. The theme is cool. You're settling in this new area, but you're definitely resource managing and looking kind of at the mechanics over the theme. Same thing with Beyond the Sun. It's just a big tech tree. Under Falling Skies, it is that dice drafting manipulation. I do like this one. I think that the story is pretty fantastic. I love the little campaign that they have going. So I could see this one potentially being up there. I'm not sure if it would necessarily beat out those others, though. Nidavellir, once again, I think that this is a solid auctioning game, but I do think that the theme could kind of be anything in this game. I do like the theme. I think it's a lot of fun, but probably not. Forgotten Waters, fantastic. Definitely deserves to be on there. Tekenyu, probably not. Once again, that could probably be anything, but I do like the theme. Micro Macro, probably not sure. And probably not. Definitely not. This one is very much a very kind of like blank slate. Even the artwork is just black and white, because this really could be anywhere. Goofy artwork. Love it. Bonfire, another one where it's definitely mechanics first. Let's see if anything else pops out to me. Santa Monica, I think, is actually pretty great theme-wise, surprisingly. This one has you actually building out your boardwalk and building out your beach, so I could definitely see that being in that thematic category. Same thing with Tidal Blades. Holy cow, Tidal Blades has like an entire world that was based around it. It's got this great lore book that comes with it. Every card kind of tells a story about this, this champion cities. But unfortunately, I think that it probably didn't make this best theming because the gameplay just kind of mentions that, but the game as a whole kind of revolves around that. And we have some conversation talking back to the Dune movie. Scylla mentions that entertaining watch, a lot of thoughts and inner monologue in the books. That's hard to communicate. And unfortunately, that's kind of what happens when you bring in any media into a movie form. You're going to lose the inner monologues and thoughts. And unfortunately, that's definitely going to happen. And it seems with Dune, that's a big part of it. And then Fatal Papercut says, bit trippy, such for a movie from '84. Effects are cool. I don't know how the new movie will be, but 90% with CGI. Most likely, yes, especially with all the space and the giant worms. I could see it. I do like the new costuming and the new direction with the like the characters' whole looks. I do like that a lot. And yep, Fatal Papercut agrees with Scylla. Very true. Lots of people talking to themselves. Yeah, makes sense. I imagine it's a very philosophical book. Yes, so I can imagine that would be a huge piece in it. Up next, Etherfields. Now, Etherfields, I do think, is actually very, very thematic. When I was playing this, my wife was there with me, and she said she's making comments like, "Oh my gosh, I think I've had dreams like this," or like, "This is so weird." It was really interesting to see her interact with this game and be like, "What is happening?" It was so cool because it really does bring you into dreams that are popular, and I imagine that went into the design of the game. Like, let's find some commonalities between our dreams and see what we could create. And I think that's really, really awesome. So for me myself, I don't really have dreams, so I did not connect. So maybe that was the thing that went into this. But for other people I've played with this, they've definitely seen scenes like this. So I think that's really interesting. These others I do think are probably mechanics first. Still probably mechanics first. Gods Love Dinosaurs, surprisingly hilarious game with a very strong theme. You're literally working on a food chain. And if you are working on a food chain, you're naturally going to have to kind of push things so that the people on the top are getting fed. There's a biology term for this. I should know this because I'm a teacher, right? But there's a biology term for making sure that everybody is getting specific amounts of food and making sure that the appropriate amount of energy is, pushed up that food chain. Don't know it, but if you do, go ahead and put it in the comments. But I think that's actually surprisingly good. I would put that pretty high in theming. I like it. I like how it's this abstract, but that theme is pretty good. It doesn't permeate the whole thing. So once again, I think those other 5 will probably be a bit stronger, but I do think it's pretty fantastic. Time Stories Revolution, as much as I dislike this one, I do think that the theme is pretty strong because I think the game is not really a game. I think it's more just the theme. So I don't recommend this game at all, but the theme is pretty good. It is its theme. So that's what I would recommend for if you're looking for a non-game, but just something to enjoy and watch. But I would not recommend that one. But that's all of the nominations there. So for me, I probably will agree with Forgotten Waters, actually. I think that will probably be my choice here, even though it's not the strongest game in the world, but the theme is so dang good. It's one that I could just sit and enjoy. Like, that's a game that I would sit back and I'd play with anybody just to enjoy that story because I think it's so good. So I think this is a great choice with best theming. If you have any ideas for what you think should have won best theming, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear. And once again, I'll feature you here if you have one that relates to what we're talking about. So that's the best theming in a game, Forgotten Waters. Let's go ahead and continue. Next is best strategy game, and the winner is Lost Ruins of Arnak. So continuing its strong awards season, Lost Ruins of Arnak is killing it. So Lost Ruins of Arnak, for me, I think is a super fun strategy game. It's one that I go to that's very comfortable. I enjoy playing it. It has mechanics I'm familiar with. It has iconography that's easy to read. It has cards that are fun. It has new things. Pretty much every ability in the game is unique. If you get an effect, nobody else is really going to have it. And I think it's really cool. Delicious. So all this stuff here combines into a game that is also beautiful. Great production, great components. Played this last night as well, and I wanted my wife to try it for the first time, and she really enjoyed it. She said that it was interesting and fun. She felt that the cards were a bit sacky, which makes sense. Most deck builders with markets can be like that. Say I buy a card and it's okay, and then the card that comes off the top that the next person can buy is just 100 times better than the card I got. It can totally happen. And that's just something you're going to have to roll with, especially with anything with that random chance, right? But I think that the system itself is fantastic. It makes for a great solo game, great multiplayer game. I love that they're already working on expansions for it, which makes sense. The only criticism that I've actually heard myself, I don't think there's any extremely terrible criticisms here. The only thing, if I would say was criticism, is there's nothing extremely innovative or new. Everything is, I've definitely seen this stuff before. It's just packaged in this new look. But the one criticism that I've heard from other people is they want progression and the amount of work or actions they can take. They felt that their symbol cards were not as useful as they wished because they only get to go to a certain amount of spots on the board. And I could definitely see that. You might feel bad if you have a lot of these cards maybe you bought with double symbols, but maybe that's just a way to as you learn the game, you realize that those cards aren't as strong as you may think, and maybe the new expansion will add that. I know it has to do with leaders, so I'm not sure exactly what's going to include. Maybe it includes your own leader meeple. That'd be kind of neat, or something like along the lines of that. I'm thinking it's probably going to come with asymmetric abilities of some sort. That's usually what happens in these kind of expansions, so we'll see. Either way, I think that this is a fantastic game. Definitely not my favorite ever, but I can definitely see it. But let's see what it is in the running against. So this is where I think that this one is probably not going to take it, in my opinion. So let's see right off the bat all of its competition. So On Mars is one that I have not played. I've heard that the teach for this game is gigantic, and I've heard that it takes many plays to actually enjoy this game. Therefore, I do not think it is a good fit for the library. Once again, my whole thing is to not only teach a game, but make sure it's fun and enjoyable. And I feel like with this one, it'd be a lot of disassociation from the game. So this is one that I have not even put in the library. The only one that I've really had success with for Lacerda games with teaching has been actually two, Escape Plan and Gallerist, because the theme is so strong on Gallerist that it makes that teach a breeze. And for Escape Plan, that one's a relatively easy easy game with a theme that helps a lot as well. Next is Beyond the Sun, which I have played. Beyond the Sun is very interesting. Once again, I don't think it's incredibly innovative. I do like the idea of getting to these tech trees first and kind of deciding the paths. But the fact that anybody can kind of join is interesting. I do like the small engine building you're making, and I do like the control on the planet board. So you're sending out these little rocket ships, and that allows you to like temporarily remove these pieces on your board, which will increase your production on these two different tracks. So I do like that. I like that you're producing at the end of every turn. That's really cool. It makes you feel good to get all those resources. Lost Ruins of Arnak, which we just discussed, and Dune Imperium, which we discussed before. Now, from a gameplay standpoint, I think Dune Imperium is very strong. I think I actually prefer Dune Imperium to Lost Ruins of Arnak. I do love the thematic ties here. I love how all the characters do feel different right off the bat. I love the cards, and I love the deck building in this game. In Dune Imperium, I feel like every turn is a huge choice as to when you buy cards, when you play cards, kind of managing, like, do I need an extra worker? Am I going to spend this money on other things? In Dune, I feel like I always find a card and I try to make that card work. And that seems so like weak on the deck building side, but really it's not. You're building around something. It's cool. Like when you play deck constructing games, you tend to do that. You find a win condition and then you build your deck around that win condition. This is the same thing, but you're doing it on the fly. And I think it's so cool. So I really like Dune Imperium. And my favorite part about Dune Imperium is the combat mechanism. I love how it's whoever just has the most strength in the center wins first place. And whoever gets second most strength gets, it's whatever, second, third, so on and so forth. But I love that you can kind of, if you're last or if in a specific turn order, you can wait. You can bide your time, see what kind of strength people are putting out, and get a lot of reward with minimal effort. And I really like that timing aspect of it. I love being able to eke out rewards and feeling rewarded for doing clever plays. That's how I feel in Dune Imperium. Whereas in something like Lost Ruins of Arnak, you're just kind of doing it. You have all these things and you're like, yeah, the best play is to just do them all. So you try to do all your stuff. So that's kind of what I think between those two games. Last one is Praga Cup at Regni, which I think is also incredible. Great designer, great game. I love the theme. I love the aspect. I love the action system in this game. This is a tile placing game where you kind of put things around on this main board. You're also building tiles on your personal action board. So there's engine building on your own personal board, getting bonuses. You have a very Ganshan clever feel where you're getting bonus after bonus, and it's super satisfying. You can set up a large set of combos for yourself, but it's also based on what people are doing because they determine the cost of specific actions, the bonuses available to you. It's a great game. I love this one. Came out of nowhere for me. It's such a random theme. Normally I won't go for stuff like this, but it's a great production. I really like this game. It has one of the best boards as well with this action crane that's going to be working. So those are the nominations that Dice Tower put up. Out of these, the strongest, I would lean towards Imperium or Praga. Me personally, I love the simplicity and it's so clean. I love how clean Praga is, but the feelings and the choices and like for the game itself, I would choose Praga. For the people and the interaction and the gameplay, I would probably pick Dune Imperium. So those would be my two choices on here. I love playing Dune Imperium with people because you get to see how they interact with this world. But Praga is just solid all around. Like, oh man, but. If I had to pick between these, it maybe be Dune Imperium. So that would be my pick here. But let's go ahead and take a look. And once again, if you have any thoughts on this, please put them in the comments. I'd love to share your opinions as well. Let's go ahead and take a look at the rest of the games that were not mentioned in these nominations that we've played in the side game library from 2020. So let's start at the top here. Whoop. All right, so first off, we've got Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion. Strategy game, I could say yes, but once again, I don't think it's actually as strong as the others. It's not even as good as Gloomhaven, and Gloomhaven's not rated particularly extremely highly. It's something I do really like, but Jaws of the Lion is a little weaker, in my opinion. Imperium, great game. Arnak, great game. Pandemic Legacy Season 0. I think that from the narrative standpoint is what's kind of pushing its rating higher than these other games. And plus that experience is just really wonderful. This is also one that I play with my wife when I do go over it, and it's amazing. I love that experience with her. Viscounts, I would not even put that on the list. Praga Cup at Regni, we talked about that one. Love it. Dwellings of Eldervale. I really like this one. Now, this one is definitely you're being very strategic with the cards coming up, but a lot of the times you're going to be more tactical than you will be strategic because it's a lot of people buying cards, and you've got random dice rolls, so you're kind of just going with the blows here. So I could see why it didn't win this category either. We talked about Beyond the Sun. I would not put Under Falling Skies or Nidavellir here in particular. Same thing with Forgotten Waters. Gameplay is a little weak on those. Tekenyu, I'm surprised, did not go there. I really enjoy Tekenyu. I think it's a fantastic game. The dice drafting is very solid, very sound. The actions are small in scope, but have big effects to the whole gameplay. I love the different technology cards that you get at the beginning of the games that give you your own personal scoring conditions. I think it's a great game. So Tekenyu is very solid. Hallertau is one of my favorite strategy games. I can see maybe why it didn't win this category because it's really dependent on the cards. But one of my 10s from last year, that's an incredible game, but it's all card driven. So on your turns, you're going to be drawing cards and you are going to be using these cards to get little incremental bonuses. And a lot of the times they'll give you more cards. And so you're trying to plan this whole farming strategy based around these cards. So I say that this would actually go extremely into that strategy game because you have your initial set of hands. You have your initial set of cards in your hand. And based on what the players are doing, you do have to come up with a strategy on how you're going to complete those many objectives. And generally, the person who's completing their cards in a timely manner and actually getting the bonuses is usually going to win. So I could definitely see this. I love this game. I think it's incredible. I think it's strongest with low player counts, personally. I think that it kind of drags a little bit with higher. So maybe that's why it didn't reach as high here. But I think it's a masterpiece of design. One of my favorites by Ube. Hallertau's great. I would strongly recommend that one. So that's actually up in the running for me here because even though it's the cards are huge, like you get them all at the beginning. So I could definitely see that being like, that is the strategy, right? You say, okay, how am I going to achieve these things? So I like that. Other strategy games here. Let's see. I think Cloud Age it's fine. It's not something that I would give extreme accolades to, but it is good. I really like that game. I think it's really fun. These other sections here for strategy. Capital Lux 2 Generations, I think, is real good. I think it's also a little more tactical as well. Fantastic drafting game. This is one that I've been playing a lot recently. I was recommended by Takaijo over on Tia's channels, Takaijo, and she recommended this one to me, and I've been loving it. Like, quite impressed. I'm really sad that it's only at 4,000. This might climb up to a 10 to me. I've been playing many of the different modules it comes with, and it's pretty incredible. I was quite surprised. Once again, it's not extreme strategy because the gameplay is so short, so I could see it maybe potentially not qualifying for this category. You are making a lot of tactical decisions because you're getting a fresh set of 6 cards every round, and a lot of the times you're getting random pulls. So I could see that being the reason why it doesn't get super high. So that would be my pins on there. But honestly, I got to go with my gut here. I think that if I had to choose, I know it's kind of weird, but I would probably pick Hallertau. The Hallertau I've had the most fun with. I think it's just a fun game. I love card comboing. I love the plays. In these other strategy games, there is card comboing, but not to the extent of Hallertau. They have a bunch of these little mini cards that you're going to be boom after boom after boom playing, and that is so satisfying to me. Praga has a little bit of that with the bonus actions, but those are going to be the same usually every time because you have those static boards. But with Hallertau, you're going to have a set of cards, and there's like 20 different sets of cards, and so you mix and match them to come up with a brand new game scenario, and I think that is so cool. It's going to put you down a different path every time with this very sound worker system. If you haven't played Hallertau, do yourself a favor, try that one out. It is amazing. I love that game so much. It's actually, I don't know why I put it in there, but we're in our move right now. We're going to be done in about 2 weeks here, but we're in the middle of our move right now, and it's in storage. I'm so mad because I put it in storage. I'll get it out soon. I'm super excited to give that one some more love and more attention. But that's that. Let's go ahead and move on to our next category here. Next category is for best solo game, and this went to Under Falling Skies, which I think makes a lot of sense. This game is built for solo. The whole idea here, you have all these aliens coming down, raining from the sky, and it's your job to use this cool dice rolling mechanism in order to activate your specific areas for these aliens. And sorry, not for these aliens, for your own like home base. But when you do that, the stronger your action, the more that the aliens in that column are going to come down and try to take you out. So I love this system. My favorite part of this game is the dice rolling. So you roll your dice, you have 5 dice, 3 are gray, 2 are white, and then you may assign the dice. However, when you assign one of those white dice, you re-roll all other dice. And I think that's so cool. It's controlled randomization. Once again, you can prioritize specific things. You can also, if you need to re-roll everything at once, you can. So I love that you have this choice in how you're mitigating your dice rolls, and I love it. I think it's so good. I think that mechanic is probably the strongest. It also has an incredible campaign system that introduces new content as you play. And when you're done with the whole thing, you can simply just grab whatever pieces you want and make up a scenario. And I think that's great. I love the variance in this game. I love that it takes a very simple core system and it has turned it into this robust thing. It's a blast. I really like Under Falling Skies. I think it's a great game. Let's look at the other nominations though and see if any of them are up to snuff. So we are seeing a lot of, some of the games that we've already seen here, which I think just plays to their strengths. So Dune Imperium, I disagree with. I think that Dune Imperium solo mode is not good. You use a deck of cards, and this kind of simulates people that are putting soldiers in the middle, taking spots, but that's really it. And that, to me, is not what Dune Imperium's strengths are. Dune Imperium's strengths are looking at what other players are doing, crafting your deck, watching the market change, knowing when to pass, and seeing other players pass, seeing other players do clever things. And it loses that for me in the solo mode. And I think that's really unfortunate. The biggest thing here, this was actually just on my recent list on games that I don't want to play solo ever. It's actually number 2 on that list. It's very high because I think it's so bad as opposed to the multiplayer. Like, why would you ever play this solo if you could play it multiplayer? That's my opinion on Dune Imperium. But I think the game is so good, but it loses so much of its charm and so much of its strength when you play it solo. So maybe if they do a revamped solo version in the new expansion, that'd be cool. But you're going to miss those little spots where you're able to kind of eke in victories because these solo opponents you're going to be playing are just, generating 3 or 4 strength at a time. They're always going to have strength in that middle thing. And it takes away a lot of the thinkiness and the opportunism in the game. And it's something that I don't really enjoy. Up next is Dwellings of Eldervale, which I think is actually an incredible solo mode. Actually, one of my favorite ways to play this game. It's amazing. I really like Dwellings of Eldervale, but the solo mode here is so cool. You have the ghosts of Eldervale is what they're called, and they basically send people all over the map. And holy cow, all of these people here are. There's every time that their own people die, they get stronger in dice, so the battles get harder and harder. But you're also trying to anticipate where the enemy is going to be placing their things. So you're constantly you're solving a puzzle while still trying to work on your own engine. And when you recall people, you want to make sure you have people on the board to activate stuff. So it's like you have to basically predict and hope for prevention for these assaults, for these never-ending ghosts. And the ghosts have their own special abilities, their own scoring. They also progress the game state. It's really good. I'm actually extremely impressed with Dwellings of Eldervale. I think if any game had a chance to run against Under Falling Skies, it was Eldervale because it's such a solid solo mode. Jamie has a comment here about Under Falling Skies. He's extremely happy that it got picked up by a publisher, and I agree. I think it's so cool. I actually didn't even realize that this was print and play until I actually started hearing about Under Falling Skies. I missed that it was available as print and play, and I think that's so cool. I think that's amazing. That just really shows how strong this game is, in my opinion. And I love that you actually got a chance to play the original print and play. Were there any major differences you've noticed? Have you played the new one? I'd love to hear, your thoughts on this, Jamie. That'd be awesome. But yeah, so cool. So happy for that designer. His acceptance speech in this awards ceremony was pretty fantastic. He was speaking in his native language. It was really cool to hear that. And I just thought it was really cool. If any of you don't know, I am actually a English as a second language teacher. So I work with a lot of students who speak all sorts of different languages. So I really appreciate when people are speaking in their L1s or their home languages. I think it's really cool. It just exposes me to different patterns of speech and things like that. And I really enjoy that. It's really cool. Something I can really appreciate. So I really like that. And then we have Lost Ruins of Arnak. I think that this is actually a extremely good solo mode. This actually it's really fun. It's really straightforward. You really don't lose anything by playing this game solo. So you get to enjoy that awesome solo nature of the game, but it also doesn't add anything incredibly new, except for a new print and play campaign expansion. So the campaign expansion is really cool. It has an overarching story. It has things that you'll save from game to game. It also offers new challenges that kind of cut and add things to the game. And I think that's really neat. It's a little random for my taste in the campaign, but it is different, and I think that is cool. So I do like the solo stuff in Lost Ruins of Arnak a lot. Super Skill Pinball 4K. It is basically a solo game, but once again, this one, only about a quarter of the game I think is actually exceptional. The rest I think is pretty mediocre. So if you're going to buy this game, just play the dungeon board. That would be my recommendation, because the dragon board is so good. Oh my gosh, that's the only way to play. It's super fun. Everything else it has that bumper problem, and I feel myself just kind of doing things just to do things. So after playing them a couple times, I was done. Under Falling Skies, though, I think definitely deserves this award. And Die Guy Games says that if you want to try Under Falling Skies, it's still available as print and play. That's awesome. So if you still want to try it, go for it. There is that published copy, which is awesome. So if you do want to support a publisher, you definitely can. But that's so awesome that it's still available. Now let's go ahead and take a look at some of the other games. Now, while we're here, though, I do want to stop really quick, and I want to share one of my earlier videos. So if you don't know, my first video on this channel actually was the top 10 board games of 2020. So here I am in all my glory. This was when I, didn't actually show the games that I was talking about at the time. It was, I don't know what I was thinking. You could definitely see the progress here, but I just kind of talked about it. I've added timestamps and tried my best to kind of help them. But my list for these games, it actually is pretty reflective as the the games that were picked here. You can obviously tell that some of the games that I really enjoyed did not show up in this list, but The Lands of Eldervale was my number 1, then Pandemic Legacy Season 0, Etherfields, Dune Imperium, Tidal Blades, Project Elite, Jaws of the Lion, Tekken, Alter Quest, Forgotten Waters. So these are solid games that are appearing on this list. Some notable ones that I did try from 2020 later were things like Hollertau, things like Praga, a lot of these smaller games like Capital X 2. So I'm so lucky that I got to try a lot of these games in these last 6 months, because man, my opinions have drastically changed. I think that I was able to find some 10s in there, some more 9s. Oh, it's awesome. I love this. I love being able to go back and hear opinions, and I love this kind of retrospective that we're doing now and being able to look back. And that's one thing I really appreciate with the Dice Tower, is that they are waiting to do their awards. And I think it's a really good move on their part, because they get more time to play those games, and they get more time to actually, share their opinions and learn about them and, develop their opinions. And I think that's huge. So I really appreciate that with what the Dice Tower is doing here. So I think they did a great job. And once again, I am a supporter of the Dice Tower. I'm not affiliated with them at all, but I do support their Kickstarters. I think that they do a lot of good for the hobby. People may not agree with everything, but I think overall, the exposure and the amount of game reviews and the amount of content they produce, I think, is just going to be overwhelmingly positive. So I do appreciate and I do support what the Dice Tower is doing here. Let's go ahead and take a look, though, at some other games that I think may fit that best solo game. So Gloomhaven is a great solo experience. You do have to play the 2 characters, so I could see that being something that is pushing somebody off, but I think that intro will kind of lead you into the game a little bit. Viscounts of the West Kingdom, as I have a low rating here, but I think its solo is its strongest aspect, actually. This is a game that I probably actually won't play multiplayer, but I will play the solo mode, because I do think that the solo mode is pretty great. It has like different difficulties on the backs of each, but I do not think that the solo mode is as strong as Under Fallen Skies. Praga's solo mode is pretty cool as well. I like how they have released a new deck of cards for it to make it simulate in AI. Once again, another one that was recently featured on the list. Have not played, I don't know if Beyond the Sun has a solo mode. I don't think so. Forgotten Waters solo mode is, I don't think, extremely amazing. Once again, you're playing it for the story, and the best part of that story is that everybody's there with you. So that's what I recommend. Microcrime City solo mode is the same thing, but one of my favorite things is solving cases with others, so I wouldn't necessarily put that in solo mode as well. And then Bonfire solo mode is actually pretty great. I like that one a lot. You have this deck of action cards that the opponent's going to be using, so it's a timer for yourself, and so you're trying to push your efficiency as much as possible. I really like that. You also have Hallertau, which is, I think, incredible solo mode. It's one of my favorite solo games, actually, which is really surprising. It's beat out a lot of Uwe's other games because that card comboing is so strong. I really love Hallertau solo, but I can see why other people may not really enjoy it. It is a worker placement, first and foremost, and the complexity and variance is going to come from the cards you get. And sometimes that may be frustrating. Maybe if you're a new player, or if you just don't like that core system, it's going to be something that kind of scares you off. So I think that's that's something to be aware of. But I think that's always one of the best solo games ever, actually. It's a lot of fun. It takes the Uwe things I like with, the resource management and the worker placement spots, and it really twists those things and puts the cards first and foremost. Now, Jamie here, he's saying that he's bought the box because it's even better, which is awesome. I'm really happy to hear. Some balancing tweaks, different cities, campaign. So more replayability, campaign. I imagine the components are awesome. So I really like, because I don't know what the print and play came with, but I really like Czech Games Editions games in general. I really like their components. So I think this makes a lot of sense, Jamie, and I'm glad that you were able to try it beforehand so that you knew if you liked it. So I'm glad that you were able to get a little bit of both. That's awesome. Some other good solo games. Paleo's fine solo, but I think the cooperation at 2 is best. Project Elite is a really stressful solo, not one that I'm really going to play solo. The best part about Project Elite is the cooperation. Tidal Blade solo is fine, but I'd rather play with multiple players. I think it's fun with the bot and getting different people on your team, but it is something that I would still prefer with multiplayer. You also have Etherfields, which I think is actually extremely good solo. This one is probably 1 or 2 is the best way to play Etherfields. I think that once you get to because the whole point of this game is you're kind of dream crawling, right? You're going from puzzle to puzzle, and the way that they increase the difficulty for multiple players is they just increase the amount of a resource you need, and I find that makes the game a little bit more, it takes longer more than it is more challenging, if that makes sense, because you're having to kind of get a perfect hand or, work on a specific color. And I find that not as fun. When you're playing the solo mode, the amount of resource you need is just what's printed as opposed to doubled or tripled. So I think Etherfields is actually extremely good solo. Same thing with Taunt and Suyu. I don't really like the multiplayer because this game is just AP City. There's like 1,000 actions that you can do on your turn. So you can just sit there and think forever. So if you're playing with a lot of people, you just get stuck because you can literally do anything. When you're solo moding, no one's waiting on you, so you have the leisure to kind of sit there and just think about what you're doing. Kingdom Rush is also a fantastic solo game. I think it also works extremely well with 2. I would not play with more. I think it's a great game, though. I really like Kingdom Rush. Super Fantasy Brawl, nope. Mysterium Park, nope. Warp's Edge actually is a great solo game. I really like that. Out of the 2, Warp's Edge and Under Falling Skies, I'm gonna have to give it to Under Falling Skies. I think it definitely deserves this award this year. So I'm not even gonna kind of beat the bush here. I think that this is going to be just a universally loved solo game. I think it's so simple to play. I think it has so much replayability, so much difficulty change. I think Under Falling Skies is a surefire winner here. But let's go ahead and keep on looking through these, see what other games are really good solos. Alter Quest is great. I really like that solo mode. Cantaloupe, I don't recommend this one. I think it's really just monotonous and boring. I would not recommend that one at all. Detectives, I think, are always better with more people. I think the solo mode in Margraves is actually good. I think it's actually pretty fun. I would recommend that one. Solo mode in Capital X2 is surprisingly great. I was actually extremely shocked at how good it was. So Capital X2, I would recommend that solo mode. And that's about it. So that's all of my picks over here for potential solo modes. For me personally, Hallertau is my absolute favorite. But for this award and just like the general appeal, it's going to go to Under Falling Skies. And I can definitely see why. It has that replayability. It has a sound fan base already with that print and play file, as Jamie and Die Guy were saying. And I think that it's going to be a mainstay in solo collections. I think it's just going to be a game that you do pull out and you do consistently play. So I think that's pretty impressive overall that a game can do that. So very impressed with Under Falling Skies. Let's go ahead and jump up to the next part of our deep dive here. Oh man, sorry about this. Video's taking so long. Jeez, there's a lot to talk about, I guess. So next is for best reprint. So this one went to Rococo Deluxe Edition. Now, Rococo is one that I've heard a lot about, and I've heard so much mixed feelings on it that I decided to wait on this one. This is a reprint of a game where you're basically making clothing for nobles, wealthy nobles. And I think that's a really cool theme. Scylla says that she just moved to Colorado Springs, had Under Falling Skies packed, so many regrets. No, I feel you, Scylla. Same thing happened with me, but with like 400 games, so I could get that. I'm sorry to hear that. I actually made sure I kept Under Falling Skies out because I had just received it before the move happened. But I hope you're able to get it out soon and get it played some more. So Rococo Deluxe here, though, is one that I did pass on. I heard like a very high mix of reviews that the game is fine, but it's overproduced. I've heard that the production is way good, but the game's not as strong. I've heard that the old version is the way to go. So this is one that I want to try first before I do put it in the library. Games like these large deluxe editions, sometimes they are a barrier to actually getting played. But once again, in our library, we do have like the deluxe version of whatever we end up putting in. So if we were to get it, it would be the deluxe version. So I'm curious before I jump into this. So the reprint here looks gorgeous. I think that this is a great choice for component-wise alone, but I don't know if the gameplay backs it up. If you've played Rococo Deluxe, I'd love to hear it in the comments if you have any opinions on this one. Now, the nominees here go to games like Fort, which is SPQF, I think is what the original game was. Not an extremely highly rated game, but if you slap Kyle Farron's art on anything, it's going to be pretty dang awesome, in my opinion. So he's my favorite board game artist just in general. So I think that he's going to definitely liven up things. Eclipse Second Dawn for the Galaxy. This is one that I have not played. It falls into that category of 4X games that just have not gotten around to play. And is this going to be better than Twilight Imperium? So it's kind of, it's fighting for that spot with so many other amazing 4X games. Next, Seven Wonders Second Edition. I love Seven Wonders. Have not played the newest edition, so I'm not sure exactly what the changes are. I know they dropped the 2-player mode, but I'm curious as to what else they did. Rococo Deluxe, which you talked about, and then Project Elite. So Project Elite, I have played. It's the newest edition of Project Elite, and I think that production is incredible. Project Elite is one of my favorite games from last year, and I think they did a fantastic job with it. So I really like Project Elite, and I could see this one, taking the world by storm. Hey, we have Mom Gamer here. She's got some insight on Rococo. Awesome. She says that it's one of her all-time favorites, and the deluxe is so amazing. Oh, okay, that's good to know. What makes it so amazing? Is there a big difference? Did you play the original version? I'd love to hear what you think, Mom Gamer. That'd be extremely helpful. But right off the bat, it sounds like you really love this and you're really pleased with the deluxe edition. So that's good to know. That is great to know. Thank you, Mom Gamer. So up here, Project Elite for me is one of the best games from last year, or from last year, from 2020. The cooperation and the conjunction with real time is displayed best here. The theme is incredible, and I've seen the original version of Project Elite, and it's one of those times where you look at it, you're like, I'm just going to wait for the new edition. And I'll be honest, I'm very glad I did. The new edition, every piece is chunky, every piece is big. The board is so nice. It's laid out extremely well. I would recommend Project Elite to anybody who enjoys cooperative games, even fans of even people who don't really like real-time games, because I don't really like real-time games. Project Elite is the exception because it's so well done, because based on how well you do, that's also how well, or I guess based on how fast you go, that's also how fast the enemy goes. And I think that's super cool how they've tied that in, where you're not super punished if you're not, being super efficient and super fast. You do want to be fast and efficient so you could do more stuff, but the enemies will also scale with you. And I think that's super well done. So in my opinion, I would probably give it to Project Elite. But once again, you're going to have to take it with a grain of salt because it's really the only one I've played that last year. And Seven Wonders is also an incredibly good game. So it's up to you on what you pick here. Mom Gamer has some more insight on us for Rococo. She says she had the original, but the Deluxe has great components and expansions. And that is key, I think. I think expansions are always good. We saw that with Glenmore 2, how it incorporated all these little modules, the Chronicles, right? And I think that's awesome. Anything that's going to give you more replayability, more value, and that's going to, let you get out this game and play it more, especially if it's this amazing. So thank you for the insight, Mom Gamer. I appreciate it. Let's go ahead and look at some potential other games that would have fit the reprint category. But I do think that those picks that they've chosen are pretty dang strong. All right, so for reprints, I'm not sure if Capital X 2 would fit in that reprint category. It is kind of a redo of the original game. It has the original game in it, but adds new modules and expansions. I have played with just the base game stuff and with all the new modules, and I do think that the modules are amazing. So I would totally agree. If Capital X 2 could be on this list, I think I could see it definitely deserving to be on there. Fatal Papercut says that Highland Games is arriving any day. Super exciting. Oh yes, same here. We're waiting for it eagerly. We have a friend that's she's being really awesome. We're sending all of our packages to her while we're in the middle of the move. And so when she gets it, we'll get it played as soon as possible. And Mom Gamer says that Project Elite's a great game. I agree with you there. And Fatal Papercut goes back, says Rococo is absolutely gorgeous. Almost bought it a couple of times. Well, according to Mom Gamer, you should have bought it because it is that amazing. The gameplay, the expansion content, and the component quality. So, I mean, and that's that's what you're looking for in a game, right? And if it's a deluxe edition, it better be gorgeous, right? So next things, let's take a look at what else could be construed as a second edition. I don't know if Detective Modern Crime Board Game Season 1 would be technically a second edition. It's a continuation of the Detective universe. I don't think it's as good as the original Detective. I do enjoy kind of like the more in-depth bits of it, but I do like the one-off stories. I think those are nice. So I could see that maybe being there. But once again, it's a new system, so I don't think it necessarily qualifies here. Welcome to New Las Vegas is a sequel, maybe not. Love Letter Infinity Gauntlet, also a different change on the base formula. So once again, probably not. Same thing with Mysterium Park. A lot of sequels, which I think is really interesting. A lot of the times these sequels do increase the longevity of everything, keeping them into the popular zeitgeist, getting people to compare the two. I think it's good. Let's see, any other second editions? I don't think so. Nothing else really popping at me. I think the only others that maybe would qualify are Pandemic Legacy and Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion. I do really like Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion's tutorial mode, but once again, I don't think it's as good as the original. So not in my opinion. Same thing with Pandemic Legacy 0. I think Pandemic Legacy Season 0 is my favorite out of the three. It might be recency bias, so I'll go ahead and put that out there now, but I think it's a great twist on the system. And no spoilers, but my favorite part in Pandemic Legacy Season 0 is the crisis cards. So you'll read this when you read the rulebook the first time, but if you ever have an outbreak, instead of just like the cube spreading, what happens is you draw a card from the bottom of your infection deck, and this infection deck will have an event that happens, and so it can be anything, and it's terrifying. So I love that. That variance here. It's just very small change, but it's so well done. I love it. So I really like that one. So for me personally, I'd probably pick Project Elites because it is a straight up second edition, and I haven't played the others, so I can't really speak to those. But it sounds like Rococo definitely deserved the award. The people in the comments here who have played it love it. So particularly Mom Gamer, she's loving it. So yep, I can't fault it. I'm going to ask Mom Gamer. Mom Gamer, would you pick Project Elite or Rococo Deluxe? What would you choose between those two? I'm curious to hear as the person in the comments who has actually done both. So excited to hear your thoughts on that. Up next, we're going to talk about the next award. All right, so we have Best Party Game. Now, this is actually one that we haven't played. We have not played Hues and Cues. This is one that we see all the time, and we're like, do we get this? Do we try this one? It seems so straightforward and fun. Party games are a huge hit. We have, I think, like 2 shelves dedicated just to party games in the library, which totally makes sense, right? Like these are going to be the people that are going to get people talking and laughing, and party games are wonderful. Simple twists on this mechanic. Hues and Cues has you playing a game almost similar to Wavelength, where you get a specific color on this entire chart, and it's your job to say a word that's going to help people select the specific color that you're going for. And that's extremely difficult. Sometimes you might get a color that's like just off of what you're thinking. And I think this is really cool. I love that there is like a actual tangible answer. Once again, it reminds me of Wavelength, where you're trying to get them that just right. So it's really interesting to me. So one I have not tried, but honestly, seeing as it is getting this positive praise and buzz, this is probably one that we're going to get. It did receive some accolades from other channels such as Tantrum House and Dice Tower, as you can see here. So I'm curious to try this one. This will probably be one that we get as our next party game purchase here. So that's exciting. Some of the nominees that showed up, and some of these I have played. 5 Minute Mystery, which is a fantastic game. I really like 5 Minute Mastery. My wife really enjoys this one too. We actually played this at a friend's house, and she played it and she said, we need to have this one in the library. I said, sure, let's grab it. This one is a real-time game that's off of like that 5-minute series, like Dungeon and Marvel. And it does something different where instead of, just kind of working on a deck of cards, it's a real-time speed game where you're trying to deduce. And I think that's really neat because when time runs out with the things that you've learned, you have to make a choice. And it's very similar to something like, I'm going to go very basic here, Guess Who, where you have like, it's not wearing glasses, it's not doing this. And so you're eliminating things and you have to just make the best guess you can. Sometimes it's very limited, the amount of things that you're able to do. But I think that this one is a fun one. It's a blast. It's good. And it's got great component quality. It's got a great insert. Everything comes out really fast, which is really important for a real-time, quick game like this. You want to make sure that setup is quick. And I think it does a great job. It also has a lot of cool scenarios and the artwork is wonderful. So I really like 5-minute mystery. Master Word, it's mastermind mixed with a word game. This one is, I've seen it a lot. It kind of fell in that same category with Hues and Cues, where it's like, do I wait on this one? It's very similar to some things we already have, so I have not gotten this one. Mysterium Park, however, I have tried, and this is basically a faster version of Mysterium. You cut out a round, you make the setup incredibly quick, and the only issue I have with Mysterium Park over the first, so I think that Mysterium Park is a great game. Like, don't get me wrong, I think it's amazing. I think what it's done is fantastic. But the thing that I dislike about Mysterium Park over the original is when you guess your correct answer, you sit there and do nothing. You are not continuing your journey. In the original game, you have 3 sections, and when you complete your first part of the section, you go to the second section, and you're working on that while everybody else is still working on the first one. I think that's really cool. And this one, however, once you complete the first section, you have to wait until everybody also finishes their first section. So you can help them with their clues, but you're not actively looking for something else, and I can find that, it's not as exciting. But once again, you're only doing 2 rounds here, so it's not as crazy, and the setup, I think, is amazing. You can play this multiple times. That would be my only critique with Mysterium Park over the original Mysterium. Telestrations Upside Down. I really like Telestrations. Have not played this one. The gimmick does not sound that exciting to me. Having one person hold it, one person write, does not sound that exciting to me. So this is one that I probably won't pick up, even though it has been nominated here. Now, I do have some responses here from Fatal Papercut and Mom Gamer. We have Fatal Papercut talking about Eclipse 2nd Edition and everything for it. He wished he had a group to enjoy it. It works well playing multi-handed solo. Okay. Does it have an official solo mode, Fatal Papercut? I'm curious to hear what you think. I know that this one is more Euro-y over like the Ameritrashy that it is. Twilight Imperium. So I'm curious what you think here. I've heard very good things, but also very bad things about Eclipse 2nd Edition. So I would like to hear some more. You've played this. I'd love to hear some more info on it. And he also says that it's great production. It looks awesome. I love the new trays and everything, just helping with that setup. Anything that's going to do that for a big game is definitely wanted. Mom Gamer has her response. Hard choice, but Project Elite, because the 2nd edition is better than the first, which didn't have amazing miniatures. And I agree with you. I think that if you're improving a game so incredibly that the gameplay is actually, improved by doing that, I think that's huge. And because in Project Elite, you're constantly grabbing and moving stuff, and it's about the visuals, right? You have to be able to see things because it's that real time. I think that it's going to be huge. Fatal Papercut says there is no official solo mode. If it does, he wants to know. You and me both, man. I love it when official solo modes get made for things. I did a video recently on games I want to see a solo mode for. And in that video, somebody in the comments was like, yo, there's actually a solo mode for this. And I didn't know about it. And it was awesome. It was for 5 tribes, actually. I had been looking for one, and I found like some fan-made ones, and they just weren't that good. But apparently, Days of Wonder had actually released one a while ago that was only on their website. It wasn't on like BGG or anything. So, man, when companies make solo modes, man, this 2020 was like the year for that. That was awesome. Like we got the 7 Wonders solo mode. That was super cool. So awesome. So cool. So, and we're actually going to see that later in this list. Let's go ahead and take a look now at some of the other games that we got in the library that might fall under this category. And let's see if anything falls in here. And if you have any comments or opinions on what might be a party game that falls in this category, I'd love to hear. So far, not really seeing anything. I wouldn't say Marvel United falls in that category of party game. It's definitely a co-op game, but I wouldn't say party. Anything else here? I'm not really seeing anything crazy. Half-Truth, potentially. Half-Truth is an interesting one. So Half-Truth is a trivia game where it's by Ken Jennings and Richard Garfield. So a longtime winner of Jeopardy and, designer of Magic pair up for a trivia game. And this one is interesting. It reminds me of a bit of Wits and Wagers. But you do have to know knowledge to actually do well in this game. But it's always at least a 50-50 shot. So it's kind of based on, what you're feeling that day. But the premise is you have 6 answers. And if you guess at least one of the answers correctly, 3 of them are correct, then you get to move a certain number of spaces and that gets you points. However, you can guess multiple answers. And if you do, you get bonus points. But if you miss any of your answers, you don't get to move at all. And that's where the twist comes. It's a push your luck trivia game. And I think that's super nice. Very straightforward, very simple, but you do have to know at least a little bit about the subject to do well in the game. So once again, one of the questions we had, I was playing with, we played with 7 people, and one of the questions was like famous, not famous, but like the first D&D modules. And my dad was actually in the room at the time, and he had played all the original D&D modules. So boom, he knew all of these. And I'm actually not a huge fan of D&D, so I didn't really know any of these. And so I just had to guess and hope and pray. And naturally, he got everything correct. And it's one of those trivia trivia games where if you know it, you will be rewarded, but you're not completely out if you don't. Because then a question came later. It was like, what are the 3 presidents in the song, in the musical Hamilton, that actually appear in the show? And I thought that was really cool because, once again, if you knew that specific niche knowledge, and a lot of the questions are a little tricky where they'll maybe include answers that if you like, or if you know what's going on in that world or in the question, they're going to maybe potentially throw you off. So unless you really know it. My favorite thing, though, in Half Truth is in a lot of these trivia games, something like Wits and Wagers as well, is they actually explain the trivia afterwards. They tell you about each of these answers and give you a little background and history on it. And I really love that one. One of the questions we did in particular was, what was it? These movies have won the Razzies, and Razzies are like worst movies ever. And they had movies like White Chicks and all these other really terrible movies, Twilight, Breaking Dawn, Part 2, something like that. And it would tell you basically how they rated or how they ranked in their specific years. And I thought that was really funny because we're big movie buffs here, so this was a good one. So that would be another nomination here. But seeing as I have not played a lot of the party games here, I enjoyed my time with Half Truth. I think that would be a fun one that I do want to try again. But seeing as I have not really played any of these others, outside of 5 Minute Mystery and Mysterium Park, I can't really speak to not giving it to Hughes and Q's, but I think Mysterium Park is very clean. I also really like 5 Minute Mystery. For those 3, Mysterium Park, 5 Minute Mystery, or Half Truth, I'm actually probably going to give it to Mysterium Park because it already takes a solid system of Mysterium and just refines it, which seems to me like it's kind of a cheat, which is why I would maybe put Mysterium Park in that 2nd edition category. But I think Mysterium Park is a solid game. It uses the codename system for setup where you just lay out all the things, then you reveal a card, and that's the thing that you're actually going to be looking at. And I think that's extremely useful for a game like this, that you've removed the setup. You remove the biggest obstacle to getting the game started, which is huge. And that allows pretty much anybody to be the ghost and actually try out their hand at it. So that would be my pick. I would probably pick Mysterium Park for this choice, but I don't know if it actually fits here. So that's for best party game. Let's keep on going up. This is best game from a small publisher. This is Dune Imperium. I believe that their terminology at the Dice Tower for small publisher means that they have 3 or less games published. And Direwolf, I think they just have Dune and Clank, if I remember correctly. So they do qualify for this. There are multiple versions of Clank, but I believe that's all just counted as one. The other games here are Chai, Dune Imperium, Honeybuzz, Praga Caput Regni, and Project L. Now we have Project L coming. I have played it, and it looks great. I mean, it's an engine builder using Tetramino pieces. I know that earlier Jamie was saying that he is pretty over the puzzly tile games, but I think this one does it in a very clean fashion. Prague, I think, is an incredible game. I love that game so much. I think it's so good. Delicious Games has only pushed out 2 new games since Suhi started up his own publishing company. Rio Grande has done the American distribution for them here. Chai, I did not like at all. I think it is a contract fulfillment game similar to something like Spice Roads or Shadow Kingdoms of Valeria, but the game takes forever. To gain resources on your turn takes forever. There's like this grid of tiles that you're going to be picking from, and you pick the pieces out and then you slide the things. So it's kind of like a Candy Crush. You're like picking pieces, and if they match things, you can pick multiple pieces, and that slows down the game extremely. And so your contract fulfillment game, it's contract fulfillment, right? You need to manage your resources well. You have to get the appropriate tiles to purchase your contract cards. And when you think about it, you're going to win because you're actually like thinking about your future plays. But when you do that, you slow down the game for everybody at the table, and it becomes something that's not as fun. I could see this game being good at 2, but they just recently had their Kickstarter for Chai Tea for 2, and that looks actually pretty great. And I would just recommend go get that one over Chai. I think Chai is a cute theme. It's got some great art, great components. Holy cow, the components are amazing, but gameplay I don't think is as strong. So I wouldn't have nominated this one at all. Dune Imperium, incredible game. This is great. You can tell it's got some DNA from Clank, but I love what they've done here. And then Honeybuzz, I have not played, and I really need to. Once again, another one that was recommended by Tia over at Takaijo, and it just looks like a blast. I love the components. I think that Elf Creek Games does amazing things. I'm very excited for Merchants of the Dark Road. Atlantis Rising 2nd Edition is one of my favorite cooperative games in general. I think it's amazing art, one of the best game artworks. It's so fun. I love the theme. That's one that I'll play and put on the Atlantis soundtrack and just enjoy my time with it. Oh my gosh. But a blast. Really enjoy that one. Out of these choices, though, so if I had to pick best small publisher here, You know, for the theming, for the fun, for the player interaction. This was that same conversation we had earlier with Praga versus Dune. I'm going to have to give it to Dune, but I like Praga better. I think I enjoy my experience with Praga, but I think Dune is an incredible experience, an incredible game, and that's half of gaming, right? Is the people you play it with and the people you interact with, and I think that Dune should win this one. It's pretty amazing. Um, let's go ahead and take a look at some of those small publishers here, if we have any more that might show up on our list. And remember, it's 3 or less games. So let's see what can potentially show up here. So a lot of these right off the bat are not going to qualify. Nope, 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 nope. I don't think any of these are really going to qualify. A lot of these games are in series or from really well-known publishers. I don't think anything's going to stake out. Moonrakers, I guess that's a new game from a newer publisher, but I think the game's pretty bad. I would not recommend that one. Moonrakers is a deck building game, but it has a lot of cooperation and teamwork. So it's a deck builder. So you already can know that, you know, it's going to take a while to build and shuffle your deck and play your own personal cards. But this has made this game extremely long in my taste. And it's one that I don't really want to play it because it's a negotiation game where you're asking people to kind of help you with specific missions and you need specific cards and things to do those missions. But the amount of time that negotiation adds to the game, implemented with the actual gameplay of, you know, using your deck building, it takes forever. This game took us 5 hours. Oh my gosh. I will never play this game again. The artwork is really cool. The game is fine. It's nothing extremely special or neat or interesting. It's a very standard deck builder. You want to get specific symbols to meet certain criteria, but that's really it. And the negotiation really brings it down, but it's a required part of the game. It has this point system where it's just not very strong. It looks like Mom Gamer agrees with me. I did not like it at all, Mom Gamer. I thought it was very weak. I thought it was... it's not very good. If you're going to play a deck builder, if you're going to play a cooperative deck builder, play one that is set like that from the get-go, like Legendary or Shards of Infinity or Heroes of Tennefer. Those would be my recommendations for cooperative deck builders. They're built that way. They're fast. They're quick. And yeah, she agrees. It takes forever. Yeah, it is not good. And you have not tried Dune yet. You need to get on that. It's amazing. Definitely play with at least 3. I think that's 3 and 4 is where it shines. So definitely go there. Let's see some other potential small publisher games here. I don't see anything else that's incredibly small. I think Shaolia potentially could be from a small publisher. I mean, technically Muffin Time. I wouldn't really recommend Muffin Time. That one reminds me a lot of, we didn't playtest this at all. It is a goofy game for goofy game's sake, which actually, you know, that is its own specific genre, and you can appreciate those games that are like supposed to be meta and goofy. It's not one that I'm going to play all the time, but for a game where, you know, if somebody farts, you get to steal cards from them. If you're looking for a game like that, then that's what Muffin Time is. Just play that one. Once again, it reminds me a lot of, we didn't playtest this at all. A lot of goofy things, a lot of meta things, and it kind of keeps you on your toes. It also has like the Don't Get Got, that game, that party game. It has that kind of built into the game with these trap cards. It's funny. It's once again, not going to make my list here, but it is a funny game for what it does. And if somebody wants to play it, you know, if I'm in the mood for being goofy and silly, let's do it. It's funny stuff. Jurassic Parks. Jurassic Parks also might be from a small publisher, but once again, don't recommend that one at all. It has a huge problem with its leader. Whoever goes first is usually going to lose. And whoever goes last starts with additional resources, which give them bonus actions. And they also get to dictate how other players are going to be scoring. And that is where this game really falls apart. This game might be better at 2, but at 3, 4, or 5, it is not a good game at all. Because the whole premise is like you're putting out these chisels on this board. And if you section a piece of the map, whoever puts that last piece and gets the most in that area, they are going to decide who gets what resources first. And based on how they're completing things, they can get additional actions. And so basically, the first person to complete something is going to win, because it's just going to kind of escalate. They're going to get an action which will let them complete more in the future. And you can really look at what somebody's doing and basically decide if they get points or not. And it's something that is, I don't know how this game got past playtesting, because I think it falls into that problem so much. This has just been a miserable experience every time I played it. One that I do not recommend at all. That's Jurassic Parks. So, on a positive note, Dune Imperium, great job. I think you did really well. I think that game is amazing. Praga is a very close second. Once again, for the players, Dune Imperium. For the game, Praga. But wow, some good choices here. So let's go ahead and continue with our deep dive into this. So we're getting closer to the top. We have best game from a new designer. And this is, I believe, if it's your first design, you're allowed on this particular nominations list. And this goes to Lost Ruins of Arnak, which I think we've already talked about a lot on the stream. I think it's fantastic. Once again, it's a marriage of existing mechanisms, and it's just a very cozy and comfy game with lots of quick combos, one I really enjoy. Our nominees for this one go to Fossilis, one that I have not played, Arnak, Endangered, which looks fine, but the replayability looks very small. I'm happy that they're creating a lot of new expansions for this. Chai, which I've already expressed my distaste with, and Beyond the Sun, which I actually did have a lot of fun with. But I will definitely agree with this one. I'm not even going to go ahead and look at other things. I think that Lost Ruins of Arnak is people who have seen the game space and they've said, hey, what can I do to combine and improve? And that's what a lot of this hobby is sometimes, is how can I improve or combine existing mechanics? If you know any other great games here that would fit in this category, I'll be honest, I don't know a lot of the newer designers here, so I can't really speak to this. So yeah, this is probably the limit of my knowledge on this specific category. All right, and next category, I think we have 2 categories left. Yep, 3, 4. Oh my gosh, there's so many left. 5 categories left. Whew. We've got our best expansion here. So this is best expansion nominees. Let's go ahead and take a look. This is for Chronicles of Crime 1400 for best expansion. Now this is I think my second list I've ever done on this channel was actually best expansions. But let's go ahead and look at the winner and nominees. So best expansion went to Chronicles of Crime 1400. Now I was not an extremely huge fan of Chronicles of Crime. Once again, it had the app problem for me where I felt like I was just, it didn't feel like it. I was on my phone the whole time. And I just felt like I was clicking text the whole time. But this one in particular is supposed to play into the interaction and kind of the theme a little bit more, where you're doing more than just using the app. You're actually interacting with the locations, and that sounds fun. So this is one that I do want to give a try, but it's not one that I'm going to purchase myself. We do have the original 3 Chronicles of Crime in the library. But if this one really is that good, maybe we get rid of that one and just focus on this new the time travel series. So I think that's really neat. I think this is a good choice. Hopefully it's good. I can't speak to it once again because I have not played this specific edition, but Chronicles of Crime is a solid system, but it's just one that's not for me. The other potential expansions here, we have Parks Nightfall. So we have this one. I have not played it yet. We have played the original Parks many times. There's one actually recently added to the library, but the Nightfall we have not played with. Sounds cool. You have these little tents that you put on the board. It's an additional spot that you can go to. Parks isn't my favorite game in the world. So it's not one that I really, I'm really like excited to jump into, but maybe this adds the complexity that I think that it's, maybe lacking, or, additional choices. Right now, that's once again one of those very simple contract fulfillment games. Beautiful game. Parks adds some new park cards that I think are a lot of fun. So right off the bat, those are cool that you can use. Next is Spirit Island Jagged Earth, which I think is an incredible expansion. This doubles the amount of content for Spirit Island without increasing the complexity of the game as a whole. And I think that is amazing in itself. This is the ultimate more stuff expansion. You've just got so many things to pick from. I love this expansion. I think it's so good. It's pretty fantastic. Unmatched Goblin Fog. Unmatched, it falls in that category of the 2-player games that I have not been able to play. So these 2-player games in particular, they look great. They look fun. I love the different theming here. I love how they're taking in the public. What is it? The Public Works? I forget what it's called. The people, if you don't own something, I don't know what it's called. Like the Lovecraft stuff falls into this category. IP free? I don't remember what it's called. If you know what it is, let me know in the comments. But taking all these ideas and putting new content out with them, super fun, super interesting. And I've heard a lot of positive things about this set, so I'm actually really surprised someone didn't win it. And then the Wingspan Oceania expansion, which I think is the best expansion for Wingspan, and it actually made me appreciate the base game a little bit more. I really like this expansion. I love that it changed the boards. I love that it added new endgame scoring cards, and this expansion in particular has made it so that you can do other things than just lay eggs in the game. I love it. I love this expansion. I love that it actually has changed things up that drastically. Mom Gamer says that she shares my opinions on Chronicles of Crime 1400, or just Chronicle Crimes in general, just clicking. And yeah, that's kind of what you're doing, right? You're just clicking and eventually you'll get to the answer, right? And that's kind of how I feel when I play Chronicles of Crime. But she does think Parks looks interesting. And for me, I think it's very basic. Once again, it's not my favorite game in the world. It's fine. The expansion looks cool. but it's one that I'm not going to reach to grab out. I'll probably grab it when other people suggest it. So it's probably like a 6 or a 7 for me personally. I think it's fine, but nothing extremely crazy. Now, this is actually one of the earlier videos that I did as well. I think this was the second video on my channel where I actually talked about my top 10 board game expansions of 2020. And you'll notice that there's a lot of differences here. Hey, there we go. Still got all the stuff behind me. I actually am showing the games now, moving up on the world, followed some reviewer comments. But let's look at what I actually chose here. So for me, my favorite expansions actually fell in the category of a lot of like pre-existing games that, are just constantly getting expansions. So Marvel Champions, The Rise of Red Skull, and Kang and Ant-Man, they were all number 1 for me. I think Marvel Champions is one of the best games ever. I think it has amazing solo, amazing 2-player, amazing mechanics. I think that's so straightforward, so fun, so well scenario driven. I think the game is incredible. Like that's one that I will always play all the time and that I enjoy playing. And I never don't have fun. I don't ever not have fun playing that game. It's amazing. Wingspan Oceania was my number 2 though, and that was on that list. So in the nominations that Dice Tower has, I would probably have gone with Oceania. I think it does change the game that drastically. It actually increased my rating of Wingspan overall from a 7 to an 8 because I think that expansion is so good. I really enjoy it. I won't play without it, and it's just so fun. I love that you are actually trying to play to different areas in order to use the nectar and trying to gather. I love the new endgame stuff. It's so good. We also have the Spirit Island Jagged Earth was my number 3, so another incredible expansion. Age of Artisans for Architects of the West Kingdom I thought was amazing. Adding the new abilities to increase your cards. It increases your want to build more cards, which is really cool. I think it's so strong. I really like Architects of the West Kingdom, the expansion for that. Project Elite expansions are incredible. The Deathmaw Valley introduces the worm, the sandworm, and the straightaway board. Amazing. And then I love the Rook team, the giant super suits. They just are so fun to play. I love it. I love that they can malfunction and whatnot. So fun. Arkham Horror also came up with amazing expansions. They had the new big expansion for what's it called? Forgotten Age, and that was so good. It revamped the exploration mechanic in there. It also had the Barkham Horror, which is one of the best expansions. It's all dog themed, but with the Cthulhu theme. It's so fun. You play as puppies and you're fighting against cats. It's so funny. It reminds me of that old movie, Cats and Dogs. And then you also have the Investigator Starter decks, which you can buy and just have a great time with, and you don't really have to put a lot of thought into building. And it came with so many awesome player cards. That's a great expansion set. Scylla's here. She says that she's been tempted by Unmatched because the lore, but solo and focus on building so much. I'm not sure I dig the PvP gameplay. However, the characters attract me so much. I agree. The artwork on Matched is incredible. And the different people they've chosen, they're bringing in Marvel now to the universe. They have you could do the Raptors from Jurassic Park versus Buffy the Vampire Slayer, or Bigfoot versus Bruce Lee. There's some amazing thing. Oh, the word I was looking for was public domain. Yes, they can use the public domain characters as much as they'd like. And I think that's really awesome. So, Scylla, I'm with you here. I'm always terrified to get 2-player exclusive games though, because that's like a huge contention for me. Is I don't get to play that very often, and when I do, there's so many other good games for 2 players that would Unmatched make it there. And then if you get Unmatched, you're going to want everything for Unmatched, right? So you're just going to consistently buy it. So even if you're not only playing it maybe once or twice, so it's a little bit hard for me to justify that one yet. Root Underworld expansion I think is great. I love the moles, one of the best new factions to be included. So that one did really well. It also came with the Clockwork expansion. I think that's really awesome. Mom Gamer has a comment here. Never tried Arkham Horror LCG. Should I try it? Where should I start? I think you should try Arkham Horror LCG. I think it's incredible. My recommendation is to wait maybe, I think, 2 months. They are going to be doing a new revamped core set here where they are going to include player cards galore, enough that you don't need to buy a second core set or anything. It's all going to be included in that original box. Comes with great storage. Holy cow. So there's just so much there. And now is like the best time. So my recommendation is get the new core set when it comes out, because I'm sure you have other games to play in the meantime. But when that new one comes out, get the new core set, and then get the Dunwich Legacy. It is the very first campaign for the game, but I think it's so good. I think that it shows you the mechanics in a great, fun way. And then at that point, you can really jump into whatever expansions and experiences you want. Now, the game is, in my opinion, I would recommend you do core game and then do Dunwich, which is the second expansion set. And then honestly, if you want, you could just kind of jump into whatever you want after that. My favorite campaign setting is the Dream Eaters. I think that one's incredible because it has small campaigns. You only have to pay 4 missions in a row, and you get more experience. You're able to do more deck building and have more fun quickly. So that would be my recommendation there is I would do base game, Dunwich, Dream Eater cycle. So the way that the packs are done right now are they introduce a core set that comes with investigators and like the first 2 missions, and then they release 6 packs afterwards that have single missions. So get those for these new ones, for those old ones. But the next thing that they're doing now is with the newest sets is they're releasing everything in one box. So you don't actually have to hunt down those packs, which is so nice. And the new Arctic set, it just all comes in one box. You could buy one box that has all the scenarios, and then the other box has all the investigators. So if you don't want new investigators, you could just buy the scenarios. And I think that's so cool. So I recommend you try it. Start with Dunwich. It's incredible. I think that's an incredible expansion in general. It does a great job with kind of exploring the system and showing you what it can do. And it looks like Die Guy Games agrees with me. He said, purchase the core, then Dunwich. I'm so happy you're enjoying it, Die Guy. It looks like this is already a critical success on my recommendation here. So I'm really happy you're enjoying it. I love Arkham Horror LCG. I've been playing it a lot with my wife, and she's really enjoying it. She really didn't know why I liked it so much because I really do think that the base game itself is not that strong. Night of the Zealot is actually one of the it's pretty boring, the first scenario. The second scenario is really good, and the third scenario is kind of ridiculous. So I would actually, if it were me, I would recommend that you play the first scenario of Night of the Zealot just to learn the mechanics of the game, and then don't play the rest. I would say after you do that, now that you know how to play, just start Dunwich. That would be my recommendation. Scylla agrees with me on my, I assume you're agreeing with me on my 2-player experience of like, everything's competing for that 2-player spot. So yes, I think it's totally a real thing. So yep, I agree with you, Scylla. And then Mom Gamer says, love it. Definitely do that. Perfect. I'm glad. Yeah, I think you'll have a great time with it. And Jamie says, loves Arkham Horror. Prepare to lose a lot. Yes, prepare to lose a lot. You are totally correct. It's a hard game. Even if you're playing on the easy mode, you can still lose. Sometimes you'll just get unlucky. Sometimes the game will shock you and surprise you with things that it's doing. But it's a great story, great cooperation, and the deck construction is a lot of fun, and seeing your character build up, it's a great experience. I love that game so much. So that's in my top 5 of all time, actually, is Arkham Horror, the card game. I really like that game. Let's continue on these expansions here. Root, Underworld, we talked about that. Hostage Negotiator, Career. I think Hostage Negotiator Career is amazing. It's the best way to play Hostage Negotiator, in my opinion. It introduces this this narrative that you can play along with if you want something like that, and it actually ties together your scenarios from all your expansion packs. So basically, it is ensuring that you play all your content, and I think that's so cool. The next game was Obsession, Upstairs, Downstairs. So yes, the Obsession expansion came out, and it's so cool because it makes the game more gamery, in my opinion. Not necessarily that it's more complex, but it actually allows you to mitigate things. So in Obsession, a lot of the times you're going to get these goal cards, and they're going to give you a lot of points at the end of the game, but it's going to be hard to kind of satisfy those. In this case, you can use your influence and use your resources to mitigate your luck and ensure specific tiles are going to appear, and I think that's super important. It's going to make you feel better when you actually achieve something because there's actually a way that you can ensure that it happens. You may have to go out your way to do it, but you're not going to be stuck with cards you can't use. And that can be very frustrating in a game like this where a lot of the point cards are randomized. But the other cool thing I really like is it's done some big change, some rule updates where you're going to get more choices with your objective cards. The spaces have changed. I think it's a great expansion, great improvement on the base game of Obsession. Awesome game. Number 10, though, Role Players, Fiends and Familiars, another incredible expansion. I think it's amazing. I think I will never play without it. The first reason I enjoy it is because in the first half of the game, you're drafting 2 dice at a time. So it actually increases the speed of the game, but it also gives you more choices with split dice. So you can actually pick and choose where they go, but they're always lower numbers. So I really like that. The other important thing is it introduces Fiends, which are terrible restrictions that go on the high dice every round. And so it gives you another incentive to not want to take the highest dice, because normally you just take them, you're like, haha, yeah, I don't care if I go last, but this time they're actually really lasting consequences. And I really like that. So those are my like top 10 from that time. And I think that those still hold up pretty well. Like most of those expansions I think are pretty integral and pretty necessary for this as a whole. Let's go back to our Dice Tower list here. Just got on a lot of tangents there. That was fun. For this one, I think that I would give it to, for these 5 in particular, I would probably give it to Oceania expansion because I think it's so simple and so easy to integrate. But I think Spirit Island is so strong. Like that is incredible. Like doubling the content, and every spirit is still unique and different and fun. I love the trickster spirit that plays cards randomly. I love that added twist. But man, the Marvel Champion stuff is still good. So if you're disqualifying the Marvel Champion stuff, I would probably go with Wingspan. Close second is probably Spirit Island, but I think Marvel Champions killed it in 2020. Like they introduced the core concept in 2019, and in 2020 they kind of showed what could happen and how these scenario packs could unfold. They released a lot of solid stuff that year with the hero packs, the Ant-Man hero packs, and it's just getting better and better. 2021 has been great for Marvel Champions as well, with all the Guardians content, and the increased difficulty is really cool. I love the scalable stuff that they're releasing. The new campaign pack is awesome. Still not a big fan of the campaign packs in general. The actual campaign portion I don't think is as strong as the singles shot scenarios for Marvel Champions, but I still think it's definitely something to consider. Next, we're going to talk about the best cooperative game, and this went to The Crew. So this was definitely The Crew and Lost Ruins of Arrak's year for best things. And in this one in particular, for Crew, the things that it was running against were Endangered, Forgotten Waters, Marvel United, and Pandemic Legacy Season 0. Now, out of this, I'm going to pick Pandemic Legacy Season 0. I'm not going to beat around the bush. We've talked about a lot of these games. The only game I really haven't talked much about is Marvel United. Now, Marvel United is, hey, welcome, Indra. Good to have you. Yeah, you're a little late. Maybe a lot of late, but we're glad to have you. Indra's been a long time follower of the channel, so great to have him here. Awesome. But Marvel United is one that I was not impressed with. So Marvel United has you playing as Marvel heroes, which I love the theme. I think it's great. The chibi art is fantastic. The miniatures are really nice, really well put together. The game is clean, but the game is boring. It's really simple. You take your little guys and you put them onto specific spaces, and your actions are driven by cards. So you play a card, and the symbols on the card, there are 4 symbols: a wild, a move, a punch, and a special, like a star or something like that. And when you use those effects, you get to interact with the board and whatever effects are on the board. But unfortunately, that's the only symbols that exist in the game. So every character is just iterations on those symbols. Some characters have special cards that will relate to that, but a lot of the strength of the characters, their powers, are the symbols that they're able to generate. And to me, it is not exciting. There's really not a lot you can do with it. Now, to be fair, I have not played any of the expansion content, so I cannot speak to how strong the expansions are. So if the expansions have changed, as criticism have maybe increased the amount of difficulty or the amount of choice. In this game, I feel like there's not a lot of huge, interesting choices or decisions. I think that maybe this is when I would give a try again, see if the expansions do change it up. But after playing the core game a couple of times, it's not one that I ever want to pull out. So this is one that's not entering the library at all. I think there are better, more simplified games that do this cooperative setting a little bit more, and I would recommend those over it. I think if you want the Marvel theme, go with something like Marvel Champions or Marvel Legendary with a little bit more choices and a little more options, a little bit more fun. This one is very straightforward in what you're doing and not that exciting in my opinion. Not super fun either, and I find that super unfortunate. So those are the nominations here. Now, for me, I would give best cooperative game probably to Pandemic Legacy Season 0. I think that this is the best of that Pandemic Legacy trilogy. I think that it has an extremely strong theme. I think that the gameplay is fun. I love that every game you play is going to be extremely different. There's no repetition, no repeats if you fail scenarios, and I think that's super strong for its case. Let's go ahead and look at the rest of these nominations here, just in case I'm missing anything, or I guess what could be nominated. So let's go to my Board Game Geek page again, and let's see what 2020 games fall into this cooperative category. So first off, we've got Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion, which I'm surprised didn't get nominated. I know they did that special award this year to ensure that it got mentioned, but I think Jaws of the Lion is actually a very strong pick for this one. Gloomhaven is best with cooperative. Obviously, it's not as good solo, but man, the cooperative state of this. But once again, Gloomhaven is not as strong as the original, but maybe they left it off because it got that special award. We'll see. Let's see. Oh, Indra has a comment here for Marvel United. He said it needs the stretch goal box to make it worth it, in his opinion. That's good to know. What things did you like about the stretch goal box, Indra? I'm really curious to hear what you think here. For me, base game was not good, and which is surprising because some CMON games I think are pretty great just base box. Like, for example, the Death May Die I thought was incredible base box. I thought Black Plague was also really fun base box. I think that these are solid games on their own. But I think you're also right here with Zombicide Second Edition. I think that the expansion content is needed for that game to be amazing. We're playing through Fort Hendricks right now, and it's really good. I really like the all-out mechanic. So I'm curious to know what is added with that stretch goal box. So all the like copious amounts of characters, clearly. So that sounds like a lot of fun. Other cooperative games here, we've got Forgotten Waters. Now, once again, Forgotten Waters is very strong story, but it's not the strongest gameplay. So I can definitely see why it didn't win this one. Macro Micro is strong gameplay and it is story, so I think that's huge. I really like Micro Macro, but once again, I'm going to give it to Pandemic Legacy Season 0 because I do think it's that incredible. Indra is commenting again on the Marvel Marvel United variations on heroes and villains. And that makes sense. Hopefully that adds to the wealth of choices and makes decisions a little bit better here. Let's keep on going through our list. We've got Paleo, which I think is a fine cooperative game. Once again, not my favorite. It's only really good at 2 or 3. I think higher player counts really bogs it down. Very simple, but very fun. I like that game a lot. Etherfields, I think, unfortunately, is a little stronger solo or with maybe 2. So I think that the cooperative is not as strong as the solo, in my opinion. Keep on going. Kingdom Rush, I think, is good at 2 or at 1 as well. I think once you get into higher player counts, it does kind of falter. Mysterium Park, we talked about. That one is really strong for cooperative. I really like the take it does on the game, but it is a reiteration, so maybe that's why it didn't appear here, or because it was on that reprint list. Alter Quest, I've had a lot of fun with. Alter Quest is kind of a funny one. You move around to complete these scenarios in this modular deck system. It's a lot of fun, but the game feels kind of like it feels very open, if that makes sense. Like, so much can happen and the game just kind of chugs along, but it's fun. Like, it's one that I really do enjoy. I think it's a great play on the dungeon crawling system. You have your own deck of cards that's driving your actions forward. In the more I play Alter Quest, though, the more I don't actually use my cards in my hand, the more I'm using like my items and things that I have on the board. And so that is one thing that I wish was a little bit different in Alter Quest. Also, the solo in this game is fine. It has that the scalable player count. I don't know, the scalar player count mechanism where if you have multiple players, you just multiply everything. So it's an okay way to do things, but once again, sometimes it can make the game a little bit longer. We also have 5 Minute Mystery, which I think is actually a great co-op game. Awesome, great little filler game. Once again, 5 minutes setup is going to help out with that. I would not recommend Cantaloupe to do anything above 1 player, and also I just don't recommend the game at all. I think it takes way too long. It's more like paperwork than anything else. I think let's see, Detective I think is fun. I like the scenarios in here. I do prefer base game Detective over over Season 1, but I do think that there are some fun cases in here. If you don't know, Detective Season 1 here, it does include a scenario that is already a print and play scenario, and that's something that we didn't know. So when we got it, we had the 4 missions in it, but really it was only 3 because we had played the print and play one already. So just be aware. I think it's the one with like the honey on the front. That's the one that's already in this box as a full-fledged scenario. So we didn't know that, so it was kind of sad. We were going to go play it, the last one that we'd saved, and it was one we already played, so we didn't end up playing it. Kind of sucked. And lastly, the last cooperative game is Midsummer's Night. Don't play that one. It's garbage. I actually have a game, a video on Time Story scenarios, I think coming out in 2 days. And this is the worst Time Story scenario. So I would not play this one at all. Yeah, throw that one at the bin. Not worth. Which is really sad because this is the second one in their Blue series, and they started really strong with Doll Project. So that's interesting. But for my choice here, I'm definitely going to go with Pandemic Legacy Season 0. I think it is that strong. So let's go back to the list here. We've got Best Production nominees. So Best Production, Dwellings of Eldervale here. Dwellings of Eldervale appeared extremely high on my best inserts of all time. And I think that this definitely deserves the best board game production. So this is a game that went above and beyond here, and they even recognize that in their speech. Dwellings of Eldervale not only comes with game trays that work extremely well, they really increase the setup time of the game. They're so functional that they not only help with the setup, but they actually help during the game as well, which is amazing. Each player gets these trays, and these trays contain all of your people. They contain like reminders, rules references. They use everything as part of that storage system. It is so good, and you simply just give a tray and they're ready to go. All their pieces are set up, and I think that's awesome. A game like this needs a system like this, and they've knocked it out of the park. This is one of the best organization systems I've seen in a game. It facilitates the gameplay. It facilitates the absurd production. Once again, the production is also gorgeous. Amazing pieces of art. You have these sound FX bases that you put the miniatures on, and they make sounds as they jump around. It is super fun. I love the trays, the dungeon tiles. They've gone the extra mile on this, and it definitely shows. So I can definitely see this one winning. But let's take a look at the other nominations. So first up is Honey Buzz. This is classic Elf Creek games. They have components galore, from fuzzy bee meeples to these squishy honey, these squishy nectar and sap tokens. I think the production is great. Elf Creek Games knocks it out of the park with every production they've ever done. So I can only expect the best from this company. Same thing with Vital Lacerda. Amazing artwork, super clean graphic design by Ian O'Toole. This is another one that you could just look at and tell, wow, this a lot of thought, a lot of quality creation here on the whole graphic design and layout. Tang Garden, I've heard very mixed things about that. Not only is it a beautiful game, that it's made for Instagram, great for shots. Big thing here, though, is that Tang Garden, much like games like Feudum, the artwork obscures the game itself, and so it's actually hard to actually see what's going on. So I could see that is where Tang Garden is going to fall off. Now, Tidal Blades Heroes of the Reef is gorgeous, in my opinion. The artwork is amazing. I love how the whole production is done. The deluxe edition really is that cool. But I do think that Dwellings of Eldervale definitely pushes Tidal Blades out of the running here, and I think it definitely deserves this spot as best production. Just the fact that it also helps gameplay during the game is huge. I love that the whole system just works, and I think Tidal Blades' strongest asset is its art, personally, and that is not super apparent as you are playing the game as a whole, because a lot of the art is on the cards, and a lot of the times you're going to be going to the spaces and not necessarily using any of the organizers throughout the game. I do love the deluxe edition, how it has the Coliseum for your dice tray. I love the component upgrades, but I think Dwellings of Eldervale goes that extra mile with not only the amazing inserts and organization method, but also the implementation of everything here. And Mom Gamer has a comment here. She loves the solo of Honey Buzz as well. I'm glad you do. I've heard nothing but good things about the solo for this game. Good things from Jeremy Howard, good things from Tia over at Takaijo. I love this, and now from Mom Gamer here. Next, she also really wants to. You really want to try Tidal Blades, I imagine. Maybe not, because you haven't played it yet. It's been out for a while. I recommend it. I think it is a fun one to play. I say definitely play this game with 3, just so that you can learn the game, and then you'll have a great time with the solo after, because you'll kind of control your own team of people, and I think that's a lot of fun. So it reminds me a lot of Champions of Midgard. You're going to be collecting dice and using those dice for different things, and you can take a lot of calculated risks. So I really like that aspect of this over something like Champions of Midgard. So I would play this over that game any day of the week. I think it's a good one, especially because you get to choose the kind of quest that you're going after, and you can pick things that are much smaller and a lot easier to succeed. So you kind of build up your skills as you play the game. I really like that. Indra has a comment on Tang Garden. Because of the 3D scenery, it's obstructing the view on the other side, making people need to get up. Could totally see that, and yes, a big detractor here for just the functionality of the gameplay, where the beauty gets in the way of the actual game. Tekenyu also has this similar problem. Tekenyu has this giant obelisk in the middle of the game where it obstructs the view of everything else, so it can definitely be an issue there. Let's go ahead and take a look to see if anything could topple the amazingness of Dwellings of Eldervale that we've played in the side game library this year. Let's get back to the top here. So first off, Jaws Line, I think it's fine. Nothing impressive here so far. Nothing crazy good for production or organization so far. Dwellings of Eldervale is knocking out of the park. Now, Nidavellir, actually, I really enjoy the production of Nidavellir. I think that it's really cool how it comes with like this rack that's going to hold all of your coins. I really like that. I think that's really cool. So I really like that in Nidavellir. I think it did a great job with that one, keeping everything nice and organized here right off the gate. Forgotten Waters, if you pre-ordered the copy of the game, it comes with this awesome little container that holds all your resources. I really like that. Other than that, I think the production is fine. I don't think there's anything stand outish besides that component organizer, but once again, you did have to pre-order to get it. Next thing here, we have Tekenyu. I do like the obelisk in Tekenyu, but very similar to Tang Garden, it could get in the way. I know a lot of people that don't even use the obelisk to make sure everybody can see the board. I love micro macro. I love that they went with black and white, so nothing will be confused in the color patterns. I love that it's just gigantic map, and I love that they included a magnifying glass. Me personally, I don't know if anybody else has experienced this, but in games where they include magnifying glasses, I almost never use the magnifying glasses. Maybe I'm just, I just don't know how they work really well. But whenever I use a magnifying glass, I'm like always finding myself like not really using it. So maybe I just don't know how to use a magnifying glass really well. Like they did this in Seventh Continent. They did this in Micro Macro, but maybe I just don't know how to use a magnifying glass. Mom Gamer has a comment on Tidal Blades. She said she loves Champions of Midgard, so she wants to play Tidal Blades. I recommend it. It's very similar feel, but I prefer Tidal Blades over Champions of Midgard. So enjoy, Mom Gamer. You'll have a blast with it. Other productions here. I love the art in Bonfire, but other than that, the pieces are very straightforward and simple. Paleo's production is a lot of fun. It has a lot of these 3D components. So you'll have these gigantic pieces that you'll be kind of assembling, these 3D components, and they just make the game really pop. And I think it's really fun. The artwork on this game is a lot of fun too. Indra says that he thinks Eclipse Second Dawn is better component slightly than Everdale. That is interesting because it didn't even make it on the nominations here. Interesting. I'd love to hear what you think about that. Indra, do you have any more insight on that? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Project Elite's component quality, I think, is pretty dang good. Once again, you need those large, chunky components to be able to move and manipulate as you play a real-time game. And I think they did a fantastic job with that. All right, we talked about Tidal Blades. Etherfields, I think, is fine. It reminds me a lot of Seventh Continent, where it's just kind of lots of cards that you'll be filing through. Kingdom Rush, I think, is pretty awesome, actually, for component quality. I think the heroes and the miniatures are fun. Everything works. And they have these like little monster trays that are going to hold all your pieces. And I really like that. I think they did a great job. Now, Super Fantasy Brawl, I think, is actually a great production. So Super Fantasy Brawl is another 10 from last year. I was quite impressed with. This actually, I know that Scylla and I, we were talking about, two-player games competing for the space. This is one that I played that I went all in on because I played it and I thought it was so good. So Super Fantasy Brawl is a 1v1 or 2v2 game where you play, it's a skirmish style, where you have your 3 characters, you're going against their 3 characters, and you are either trying to knock out their people for points or you're trying to complete objectives for points. But really, you're trying to focus on those objectives, and you do it through this incredible card system. Now, skirmish games generally are going to take a long time to set up. I'm coming from like backgrounds like Batman, Gotham City Chronicles, where the setup I got to do beforehand before people even get there. Otherwise, it's going to be a hard one to get to the table. But this game, the setup, the way that they've done things, the game starts in like 2 minutes, 1 minute. It is so fast. A lot of people dislike the game trays that come in this game, and I actually disagree. I don't like the game trays because they're gigantic and they do take up a lot of space, but for getting the game started, these things work incredibly well. The only thing I would say is you need to label the specific names on the game trays because those will help with putting them up. But other than that, they work extremely well. You pop off the top of one, you sit it on the table, you're ready to go. You flip up the board, you're ready to go. Everybody grabs a stack of cards, picks 3, draft them, you're ready to go. Game is done, you're ready to play in 2 minutes. And that is one of the strongest things about Super Fantasy Brawl. So impressed. This game is fast, it's quick, it's fun. The cartoony art is amazing. I love the gameplay of it, and I love the extremely tactical yet strategic nature of the game. I love the neutral actions. I love the different flavors of the characters, and it's one that I'm just excited to get all the content for. So production on this one is over the top. Giant pieces, giant chunky guys, great card choices, trays that are a little bit over it. This would be in the running for me for best production. I do think it's great. The only thing I don't like is the expansions are not going to fit in the box using the organization system here, so that will get annoying in the future. But for right now, I think they did a great job. Not going to beat Everdale for me, or Dwellings of Eldervale for me, but I think it's great. I think this is a really good one. Yeah, so a lot of people complain about it, and I agree. There's a lot of wasted space, and that is the issue. But for functionality, this works beautifully. We have an organizing video for this on the channel, and I don't get why people are so upset with this one. It does not make sense to me because these game trays work. It is big, so I can see why that. Real estate is a huge thing for a lot of people with the amount of games they're able to keep in their place. But for the actual functionality, Super Fantasy Brawl is great. Steering Park's fine. Warp's Edge is fine. All these other games are fine. 5 Minute Mystery, I really enjoy that insert, actually. I think that it is so good. All right, have a good one, Jamie. Thanks for joining us this morning. Have a great rest of your day. And Indra has a comment here. He says that in Second Dawn, you have the ship miniatures, each of them. Lid of the component trays uses resource tracker. Shiny plastic marker is also nice. That sounds great. So that reminds me of Eldervale, right? You have your tray is actually part of the game, and half of the organization is implemented into that. I love it. I love it. I can see how that could make high on your list, Indra. Thank you so much for letting us know about this. So I really want to try this one. I have, once again, I have a friend who has a copy of this. Hopefully I can get a chance to play this one. Awesome. All right, 5-minute mystery though. I really like the organizer in here. Once again, you need a good organizer for these very quick real-time games, and this does a great job with it. You simply pop, 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 and you're ready. It's awesome. It's so well done, and it's got that system that Between Two Castles uses by the Stonemaier games, where when you put up the game for the last game, that randomizes it for the next game, and I think that's a great system for an organizer. Next here, let's see, anything else that will make this for best organizer? Nope, that's it. So gonna give it to Dwellings of Eldervale. Indra has a strong case for Eclipse, and I do really like the organizer for Super Fantasy Brawl because it facilitates that quick setup of that quick gameplay. So quite impressed there. All right, let's go back to our next nomination here, or I guess our next award here. Let's head back to the Dice Tower page here. This is going to be for the best artwork. This is the most subjective one for sure. And this one goes to Lost Ruins of Arnak. Now, another thing I really loved on the team here, they kind of featured every single person on the team. And it was so cool because there's so many people that are behind the artworks on these games. You'll see here in 3 days, I'm actually doing a video on my favorite artwork in board games. And holy cow, the list of names for each game is actually surprisingly large. There's not a lot of games where it's just one person. And I actually really like that. I love that a lot of different people are bringing their creativity and interesting artwork into games. I think that's so cool. So I love this. I love that they featured every single person in this game. It was awesome. So I really think this is a good choice. I think Arnak is a beautiful game, and I think it's that piece that kind of wraps that whole package together. Now, the different artwork, other nominations go to Tidal Blades by Mr. Cuddington, and I think that, that is amazing. Tidal Blades artwork is one of my favorites in particular. It really helps with that world building. Oceans is beautiful. I love this kind of interesting choice they've made with like this kind of watercolor style. Lost Ruins of Arnak, which we talked about. Forgotten Waters, once again, you have these giant pages of artwork, and I think it does a great job here. And then Etherfields, where you have this classic kind of like Awaken Realm style art, but in different specific scenarios. Because remember, you're going through a dream, but a lot of these are a lot darker than you'd think they might be. So unfortunately, the dark tone, I think, is maybe what took Etherfields off this, whereas these other games are very bright and inviting and joyous. So for this one, I do want to consult my the list of games that we've played from 2020, because artwork in games has just gone up in these last couple of years. I'm quite impressed with kind of the direction that they've gone. So far in these chunk, I would probably say, actually, I really do like the art in Viscounts. I love the Miko's art. I think it's some of the best. Lost Ruins of Arnak, also incredible artwork here. I think that whole team behind it. CG does a great job. Praga has a very unique artwork, which I really do appreciate. It reminds me of something like Coimbra. I really like that artwork. Dwellings is also very pretty. I wouldn't put it on my favorite, but I do really like Dwellings' artwork as a whole. It's definitely a fantasy world. Nidavellir, I love its kind of muted tone on the dwarven armies that are there. So I really like that. Forgotten Waters is great. I love the artwork on this. Once again, its strength is its story and its world building. Tekenyu's art is very, once again, muted brown, but I think it does a good job explaining what's going on. Macro Micro's artwork is the game, right? That's what you're looking at throughout. So luckily that artwork is super strong, but once again, it's chosen black and white so as to make sure that nothing gets lost in confusion with any colors or anything like that. I really like the art in Bonfire. Once again, this is the same guy who did Terra Mystica, and I really like it. Michael Newsom agrees with me here. He really likes the artwork in Praga. Totally agree, Michael. I think it's super wonderful, super whimsical. I love it. I love it a lot. Hallertau, unfortunately, not super good artwork. I really like the artwork in Marvel United. Paleo is really good as well. Paleo features these double-sided cards, and that's kind of what you're basing your decisions on, are the artwork on the back of the cards, and I think that's super cool. So I really like that. I really like the artwork on the boards in Project Elite. They're very nice and clean and clear, and they're going to help with that real-time aspect. That's exactly what you need. Same thing with Santa Monica. I think that artwork is great. Very beachy. Super goofy. Tidal Blades, I think, might be my choice on artwork here. Oh, man. Solomon Kane looks so good. Sorry. I'm reading Mom Gamer's comments here. Tidal Blades looks so good. The artwork here is amazing. Let's go really quick. So Mom Gamer has a comment here. Random question, Solomon Kane or Storm Sunder? Husband has a chance for one of these. Any thoughts? So I've not played Storm Sunder, but I have played Solomon Kane. Solomon Kane is a one-shot
like scenario-based game. So you pick a story that you're going to take, you take your thing, and you go do it. So that's what Solomon Kane is. Solomon Kane is story first, mechanics second, in my opinion. It uses a very simple dice mechanic in order to activate things, and the story is first and foremost, and you're kind of going down this branching path narrative and enjoying. I really like Solomon Kane. It's in my top 10 from 2021 so far. I really enjoy it. Not my favorite game of all time, but it is a lot of fun. So I enjoy Solomon Kane, and there's a whole bunch of content for it. This is a game that a lot of people can play and you can appreciate if you like the writing style. I forget his name now, but whoever has written Solomon Kane, his writing style is great, and they use that source material. It is fun. So if you're going for narrative first, Solomon Kane. Storm Thunder, I have heard very good things about. This is one that I'm actually on the fence on right now. I did just back the Wild Ascent Levon Rising, which is in the same universe, but Storm Thunder is a epic campaign game where you are going to be playing a branching paths going from scenario to scenario. This is a large commitment for Storm Thunder, and so that's the game that you're signing up for here. I've heard nothing but good things about it. I've heard that it has great AI. I think it's good. I think it'll be fun. I think it'll be fine. I think it'll be great. I think it'll give you a similar experience as something like Gloomhaven or Midara or these other large sprawling campaign games. Now, there's a lot of choices there, so that one's going to be our call. I have not played Storm Thunder, and once again, I am kind of on that fence as well. Right now, I think that I probably will not get Storm Thunder because I think Levon Rising is giving me a shorter campaign experience while I do have these other games, Midara and whatnot, to get. And once again, Storm Thunder is going to be one of those games that you can back later, so I don't think I have anything that I need to do to jump onto it now. Solomon Kane, some of the content I think is exclusive, but it's something that you can also get from the Mythic Games store, so you can definitely jump into that one. Good option is to get it from Game Steward, and I think it's a good one. So kind of those are my thoughts here. Indra also has a comment here for you, Mom Gamer. He says, if you want to play now, Solomon Kane. If you want to play 2 years later and have $600 for all in, get Storm Thunder. And yep, that's kind of where I'm sitting at up. We just put a lot of money into Wild Ascent and into, what was the game? Mythic Battles. So those are pretty large purchases recently. And so Storm Thunder is in that high tier. And once again, when we do go all in on things, we make sure it's the best quality possible for the library. And so if we did get Storm Thunder, it would be like the one with like the fancy paint job and stuff like that. So that is about $800, something like that. So that's that. Those are my opinions here. Scylla also has a question. Thoughts on Midara? Midara is fun. Like, oh man, it is really weird to learn and to jump into, but most of these large dungeon crawlers are. Chronicles of Drenagor was that way because no one really had done a really good solid rules video for that. Luckily we did. We got a good one on the channel. You can go check that out. But Midara is fun. There's a lot of good content for learning it. You can jump into the game quite easily, and the story is fun. They have free narration, and that is huge because this book that you get for the game has 10 minutes of reading, 20 minutes of reading at a time. But if you have if you have the narrative going on behind you, you can set up the scenario while listening to the book, and that is awesome. So I'm really enjoying Midara. Actually, I'm going to play it after this, so I really like it. We just beat the first 5 scenarios. Once again, I'm playing with my wife here. This is one that we're enjoying. She says that it reminds her a lot of something like Gloomhaven, where you can jump in and have a good time and play and enjoy, except this has a very fun narrative. It's a very cool story. They have their narration, which is great. They have lots of customization, which is huge. After you beat the first couple of missions, you'll get a feel for how the characters work. And then they say, okay, you've earned this money, go ahead and buy whatever you want for your character. And now that you've kind of experienced a little bit of everything, which is really nice because they kind of ease you into the selections, you can pick the playstyle that you enjoyed from those original characters. And I love it. So you also have choices between 4 characters. And if you play with less people, you can get these small cards that just beef up your character, but reduce the complexity of having to control multiple characters, which is really nice. And so that's what we've done, and we really like it. The dice system is fun. It reminds me a lot of Imperial Assault. So whenever you roll dice, you're going to have symbols and numbers on the dice. The number is like the number you're trying to hit to kill something, and then the symbols allow you to activate abilities on specific characters. So I really like that one. So I really like that. And you can even empower your attacks to potentially get more symbols to trigger more abilities. Super cool, super fun. I really like Midara. It's fun. The story is great. Yeah, I would recommend it. I really like it. And it's available. You can try Midara now. And as Indra is saying here, he says that you can get Act 1 now if you want to play it. And if you finish it, you can decide if you want to continue, because I imagine they are going to open up the pledge manager. And yeah, I would recommend it. It's an awesome one. So yeah, that's my recommendation. So go try it. Mom Gamer says, thanks for answering me. You're very welcome. That's the whole point of this, right? Is to engage and talk to the board game community. And I really appreciate you being here. So thanks so much. I really appreciate it. Michael Newman, he says, how's the narrative in Forgotten Waters? The narrative is Forgotten Waters, Michael. Once again, the gameplay is not extremely strong in Forgotten Waters, but the narrative is so good. That's the best part of the game. And once again, something I've found that I really love recently is the voice acting, narration, and it has that in spades. The story is fun. The different places are fun. The locations are fun. It is very goofy, very interesting, but also can get very serious and very cool at times. Each scenario you play has an overarching story that you're walking through. I would recommend it. If you are looking for good narrative, that is what Forgotten Waters is. This is one that I've played with my family members via Skype. They have great virtual game applications of it. Awesome stuff. So I would recommend this one if you're looking for strong narrative. And then, yep, we talked about this already. Andres, he recommends that you get Midara, the first act. Mom Gamer says, he's got stolen. That sucks. Oh my God, that is the actual worst when that happens. So we've had 2 games stolen so far from our library, which sucks that I had to say that, right? So far. The first one was our copy of Cthulhu Death May Die was stolen. That was terrible. So we had the entire, basically everything but the giant miniature was stolen, and that sucked. Luckily, we were able to talk to Come On, and they weren't able to cover the cost because that's not part of their mantra, but they were able to give us the ability to purchase the exclusives again, and that is really what we were looking for. So we were able to get that full copy back. It sucked though; we did have to absorb the cost, which was not so good. But the second game that was stolen was Barrage. We recently got all of the new promos, the metal coins, all that stuff from the Maharaja Kickstarter, but that also was stolen. Once again, somebody picked it up and walked off with it, and that really sucked. But Cranio Creations actually said, hey, pay the shipping and we'll replace those parts for you. And so that's amazing. So huge shout out to Cranio Creations. They were able to replace those parts. Only half right now because some of them were sold out, but they made sure that, hey, we're on the list to receive the parts when they're gone. So maybe reach out to Succubus Publishing, Mom Gamer. They may be able to hook you up with something. I hope that you're able to get that game because Midara is really fun, and I'm really sorry that happened to you. It's the absolute worst because you've waited so long already, and now it's gone, and that's the worst. Yeah, it sucks. There's really nothing else you can do except for ask for help. So I hope that you're able to get another copy and be able to play it and enjoy it. So Scylla here says, thanks for the info. You're so welcome. I'm happy I can help if that's something you're looking for. First edition Midara. Yeah, that's rough. She says, left in the car for a minute. What was that? That's good. I'm also glad they did not steal the car. And Indra says, yes, it is definitely heavier than Gloomhaven. It's actually bigger than my Kingdom Death monster box, which is kind of insane. It's over there on the shelf. Pretty ridiculous. So we're still talking about artwork here. Let's see what else would fall into this category of awesome artwork. I really like the artwork in Super Fantasy Brawl, actually. It reminds me of something like Hearthstone, very much a cartoony world with lots of unique art for each card. I love that. Let's see, anything else? The artwork in Moonrakers is actually pretty great. It's got this nice muted, not muted, very nice retro sci-fi style artwork. So I really enjoy that. Let's see. Sonora's art is very straightforward and simple, but also a lot of fun. I really like the artwork in Village Green is very quaint. I really like that. Once again, the Miko is killing it with Margraves. I have this great picture on, I think it's on my Instagram, but it has like all of the cards from this game next to each other. And it looks so good. I love Miko's artwork. Half the reason I get some of the games I do are just because of the artwork, because I really like that artwork so much. Speaking of amazing artwork, Capital Lux 2 Generations has incredible artwork by Kwanchai Moria. Love it. I love that artwork. It looks so good. Shalia looks like an app, and I think that's a lot of fun. Jurassic Park has wonderful artwork. The artwork in Time Stories Revolution, Midsummer Night, and Muffin Time's got that I forget the name of the guy Tom Ska who does those videos. So, but for artwork, I'd actually probably give it to Tidal Blades. I do think that world is so good. I love that art that they have in there, and in particular, they even have an art book that blows up all the stuff, and I think that's pretty amazing. And you're very welcome, Mom Gamer. Once again, I hope that you're able to, hope you're able to come back from that. It's the worst feeling. It really is. It sounds awful. Indra says the art for Unmatched wows him every time. Every time there is a set. I agree. I think it looks amazing. Once again, as I was saying with Scylla earlier, it's one we haven't played yet. It's one we haven't put the trigger on. So I don't think I've been able to appreciate it that much, but always drawn in. I love that cool, the very stark colors that they choose and the very defined edging on the different artwork. Amazing. I really like the artwork there. Good choice, Indra. If anybody else has any suggestions for amazing artwork, love to hear them down in the comments. Awesome. All right, up next, we have our last one. We've made it to the end. So this one is for Game of the Year, and Dice Tower has picked The Crew. Now, Dice Tower here has chosen a game that is extremely inviting, something that everybody can play, but also has enough that's there for gamers. Now, this would not be my choice. The Crew reminds me a lot of The Mind, actually, where it's a game where I'll play it a couple times and I'll say, oh, this is fun, this is cool, but I don't really want to play it more than once or twice at a time. It's not something that I'm going to sit down with and continue to play. I think that it does what it does well. I think it takes the trick-taking idea, and I think it does it extremely well, but it's not one that I am extremely pulled in by either. It's one that I'd be done with for a while. This is one that I'm not going to pull out a lot, and it's not one that I'm not necessarily going to prioritize over other things. And I think that's what a game of the year should be. I think a game of the year should be a game that you are constantly thinking like, I cannot wait to get this game played again. I want to play this so bad. Let's go ahead and take a look at the nominations. And this is the biggest one. It has the most nominations in it. And you'll see these appear in a lot of the other categories as well. So let's take a look at what the choices are here. We have Calico, which is, once again, that tile lane puzzle game. The Crew. Dune Imperium, we talked a lot about. Dwellings of Eldervale, Forgotten Waters, Isle of Cats, Lost Ruins of Arnak, Viscounts of the West Kingdom. I don't know why it's there. Pandemic Legacy Season 0. So these are the games for Game of the Year. So lots of good choices. We've got 9 games here. Once again, in the comments, let me know your thoughts. What do you think should have won this? Now for this, I'm going to go to my list here, and we're going to see my 10s from last year. So I believe I only have 2 10s. I may have a third here in a couple of days. The more I play Capital Lux 2, the more I'm falling in love with that game. It's very close to becoming a 10 for me. I need to just, you know what? I'm going to do it right here. I've played this game enough. I've explored a lot of it, and it's one that I do just constantly think about. I'm going to give it the 10 here. You saw it first. Capital Lux is a 10 for me. It's so good. This is one that I consistently want to play. The solo is surprisingly great. The multiplayer is so good. The player count, the way it scales, the different abilities, the simple card play, but the tense decisions. This is one of the best filler games I've played in a long time. It gives me the same feeling as something like For Sale or Biblios. Wow, like this game is so good. Michael Newman has a quick comment here. He says he's surprised Dune didn't receive the award. He wasn't bowled over by Dune, but people seem to love it. And I agree with you, Michael. I think that I'm quite surprised that The Crew made it so high. Maybe because The Crew is just, pretty much anybody can play it, while Dune, you have to kind of be familiar with the mechanics of kind of deck building, worker placement. But I guess The Crew does have the trick taking that is a mechanic itself, so we'll see. But yeah, I can agree with you. I think Dune would have been definitely a high contender for this award. Now for me, now that you've seen that I have a new 10, my 10s here are Capital Lux 2, Generations. My second 10 is Super Fantasy Brawl. I think that's an incredible skirmish game. And then my last 10 is for Hallertau. So those would be my contenders for Game of the Year, I believe. I think that's everything. Which is funny because these games did not appear on my top 10 of 2020 because I actually played them after December, after I put up that original video, which is pretty great. And once again, that's another reason I love doing these retrospectives and kind of waiting. And I really appreciate that the Dice Tower does wait until they make sure they've gotten these games and have played them all. So for me, for my money, the game that I would always want to play, once again, this may be recency bias, but I might have to give it to Capital Lux 2 because it's a game that I want to play solo. It's also a game that I want to play with others. It's also a game that I can play a million times in a row. But then there's Hallertau, which is just, it is so good, it's so fun. It would be between those two. Once again, Super Fantasy Brawl is probably not going to make it there because it's restricted to that 2 to 4. I can't play it all the time, but when I do get to play it, man, I love it. If I get a chance to play Super Fantasy Brawl, I'm pulling it out. That's a good one too. But with all these other games, I'd have to. Oh man, I think I'm gonna have to give it to. Oh, this is so difficult because of the player count. I'm gonna give it to Capital X 2. It is like made it up there with my top filler games, and just because a game is heavier than another, I don't think it deserves to be discredited. Just because Capital X 2 is so simple in what it does, I think that because it does it so well and it's simple in simplicity, I think it deserves that 10, and I think it deserves to be high. So yes, I think that that is going to get my game of the year, which is insane because I only got that game recently, and that's wild. I've had that game for about a month, and it's up there. It's one that I'm going to consistently be bringing and consistently pulling. It also has multiple versions. It's one that I just want to play more of all the time. I love that game. I think it's so good. I think it's simple in what it does, but so strong. So strangely, beating Hollertau, that's wild, is Capital X 2. Capital Hollertau is really good though. So I really like Hollertau. Mom Gamer has some comments. Capital X 2 is on the way. Just ordered it. Can't wait to get your hands on it. Super excited for you. It's amazing. The game shines at every player count. It's so different each time. The modular system. Don't play the base game one just once so that you can learn the game, so you can teach to others. But just start mixing straight from the get-go. You have all these different powers for the different abilities for the different cards. And so it's very similar to something like Coup Reformation, or what is it, Coup Rebellion, where the abilities will change each game. So I recommend you jump into that right away. It's fantastic. It's amazing. We played a game last night where we had never had this combination before, and we even saw a new one that we hadn't seen, and it was so different. The game was so weird, but it was so fun. I love it. I love that each expansion brings in different components. I could gush about this, and we've already been here for 2 hours and 20 minutes, so I'll stop now. And then Mom Gamer says, Super Fantasy Brawl seems interesting. If you have the ability to play it 2 or 4 players, I jump in on it. I think it is that good. I think it's a fantastic game. Once again, it's one of my 310s from last year. I think it's incredible. Incredible game. One of my favorites, and a game that fits. That's my favorite skirmish game of the head-to-head games. I think it's amazing. I recommend it. One thing some people don't like about it is the card draw. Based on how you're drawing your cards, you could get a hand that you're not necessarily happy with, but I don't think it's that big of an issue. Your deck is only 16 cards, and you're drawing, your deck is only 18 cards, and you're drawing 5 every turn. So you have a pretty big idea of what you're going to be drawing, and you can take actions to plan for the future. So a lot of people don't like that their first game, though, because either they're not super familiar with the cards they're seeing, or with the mechanics of the game as a whole, they feel kind of bad having to, take reduced, weaker actions. But knowing the cards comes naturally after you take 3 turns. You know every single card in your deck. And I think that's super cool. And if you play this game multiple times, you're going to kind of know the feel of each characters and the combos potentials. It's so good. I love that game so much. And that is everything. So that is the overview, the list, everything from the Dice Tower. Holy cow, this is a long video, but thank you so much for being here and for sticking around. Any questions or anything before we do close off the stream? I'd love to hear what you think. Yeah, and like Indra's doing here, let me know what your game of the year is. What was the game you were most impressed with from 2020? Amazing. I think that this is great stuff. Yeah, just let me know if there's anything else you'd like to share. So first off, let's see what Indra says about his game of the year. So Indra says, my game of the year for 2020 is Eclipse Second Dawn, followed by Jaws of the Lion close second. And as Indra described earlier, he loves the organization system in the game, and it is an epic space 4X game. So I can only imagine that this is a fun one. So you've just made me more excited to get my hands on this. So hopefully I can I'll schedule an appointment here and get a time to play that ASAP and see if it'll be a good for the library. Once again, it is competing. There's a lot of great 4X games, so hopefully it can go there. And Jaws of the Lion, I could definitely see that being a great experience. That is a game that we have gifted to a lot of people, and they have had a great time with it so far. I love the mystery that's still in there and the condensed Gloomhaven experience you can enjoy. This awesome world of Gloomhaven, and the system and the combat and the card play. Awesome. And I love that people can actually get their hands on it through Target, which is great. I love that it's opening the space to a lot of gamers. Mom Gamer asks, one last question. Really glad they came across the channel. Love it already. May I ask if you have Patreon? So I do not have Patreon. It is something that I'm considering. Once again, this is a branch from my business here in Colorado Springs. So it's part of SideGame LLC. So this was a channel that I started originally to jump into the board game space, into the online community, and to just say, hey, I love board games. I am trying to spread the love of board games as much as I can. And I thought that this would be a great way to not only bring awareness to board games and the love of those that I have, and share my expertise and my insight, but also be able to bring awareness to SideGame LLC and the services we have here. If I did get a Patreon, I think that's something that I will look into, because we recently did hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. And so this has been really cool for us. We've now been able to monetize our videos, and we really appreciate all the support and just the people that have been sticking around, and the people that are here for the conversation and the live streams. We've had a lot of fun reaching out to all sorts of other content creators. We've worked with Alex from Board Game Co. We've worked with the three over at we've worked with the guys over at Playing Board Games with Justin and Travis and Bryn. We got to work with Critical Roll for Crit. We worked with Jonathan and Will, and that was so fun. I love working with people, and I've made some great friends along the way too. I've met Tia over at Takaijo, and one of my longest buddies from here, Dan from Chairman of the Board. I've loved working with those two. We actually have another live stream coming up with Tia next Monday. I'll put a post on that tomorrow, kind of spreading that word. And Dan is a little bit busy right now, so we're hoping to get a corporate cardboard scheduled soon. But as soon as we can, we'll get that set up. So having a lot of fun here. Indra says, spread the OCD organization. I thought it was fun. The reason we even did the organization videos at first is because that has not been done. And we needed to make sure that our channel, Board Game Co. and Quackalope did a really good video a while ago about what new YouTubers need to do. And one of those things was, you need to do something that is unique. You need to do something that no one has done, and that is something no one has done. This is almost a service, which is cool because it doesn't exist. And I know sometimes when I get a game, I'm like, God, where do I put everything? And I thought this would be perfect. And my favorite types of these videos I can make are for gigantic Kickstarter games. For example, we just did one for Solomon Kane recently. We did one for... let's see, Dwellings of Eldervale. All of the information on how to store that is there. And so that would get you into the game extremely quick. A lot of the times the information is in rule books and stuff, but having a video to step-by-step show you and guide you along, super useful. So I think that is good stuff. That guy even says that we've got him going to the Dollar Tree more often to get game organization supplies. And I think that's great. It's so cheap, it's so efficient, and it really does help with the gameplay speeding up. Opening a lid and you're done that's huge. Like, that gets people playing games, and that's huge. I think that's good. And thanks so much for the great discussion. Now, one last thing, Mom Gamer, on the Patreon. Oh, that's very nice of you. Will be one of my first supporters on Patreon. So I have not used this system. I actually have two things that I'm planning on working on this week. The first one is trying a new streaming software, because right now I'm using StreamYard, and I've been recommended to try OBS, is what I think it's called. So I am curious to what I'm going to be doing for that. But the other thing that I want to work on is looking at Patreon. Now, I know with Patreon, you have to, there needs to be an incentive, right? Like, I need to create a video that's exclusive to Patreons, or something, some reason to back on Patreon as opposed to just going through YouTube. So whether that be you guys choosing new games that you want to see organized, new games that you want to see in the library, etc. So if I were to do a Patreon, I want to ask you here, if you're still in the chat, what would you like to see? Because Mom Gamer, if you're going to be a Patreon member, what do you actually want to see from this? What should I be looking for? Once again, I've only been in this space for about 6 months on the online side of things. This is actually 7 months now. This is our 7th month doing it. We started in December. But I really want to know what would make a quality Patreon, like, exclusive thing. So if you have any ideas for that, I would love to do that. So I'm curious. I'm curious to see what that is. Scylla, she has a comment here. Has no insert, City of Kings, no insert for massive boxing content. I was shocked. Yeah, that one, I actually had a good time organizing that one, actually. I don't have it on the channel because I actually sold that game before I started the channel, because I don't really like that game. It fell into that category where I made it, I organized the box, I played a couple times, and then there was one time where I set it up and I looked at the game and I thought to myself, I really don't want to play this. And I literally just put it in the box and sold it the next day, because I don't think it's that exciting. There's a lot of those, like, fetch quest missions that are just not exciting or fun. The combat was not that exciting for 2 players. Maybe it would have been better at 4, but at the 1, 2, and 3 player count, the combat was just really boring. Man, I was really disappointed with City of Kings. It had this great world and these great choices, but the choices ended up not really being choices and just paths. So I'm really sorry. I know, Scylla, you're shook right now, but so the way I actually organize that game, though, Scylla, is I use the boxes for the expansions. So I use the box for the miniatures, I think, to hold all of the tiles and the banners and stuff. So that way, when I started, I could just pull out a box. So the setup was good. Like the anti-knock trays were really helpful, stuff of that. I think that's what I would do. Yeah, that's what I would do. Is I would use the boxes from the expansions to help with the organization, and like the anti-knock trays and the like organizations that come from City of Games for that game, I think are actually really good. So I'd recommend that. Indra says Tom Teaches also does the organization thing. Ah, very cool. I did not know that. I don't even know the Tom Teaches channel. I'll have to go check him out. But thanks for letting me know. Do-it-yourself boxes. That's cool. So I have not forayed into that. I am not very comfortable with my crafting skills. So that is that. All right. And then we have Mom Gamer here. This is something that she's looking for from Patreon. This is great. So Mom Gamer says most of the content creators would do a video a week exclusively, maybe live coverage, organizing a game, or discuss an idea that you have for like 10 minutes. Okay. Those are good ideas. I will take a screenshot of this because I think that I need to keep this in my mind. This is good. Okay. That seems like a very viable option. Are you Patreon supporters for anybody else, Mom Gamer? Anybody in the chat? Anybody else subscribing to Patreon? I'm curious. I'm curious to know what that looks like and if that's something that people, well, clearly people actually do it. That's the reason people have Patreons, right? Mom Gamer also says some creators just release videos on Patreon a few days ahead of time and that's it. That one seems a little lazy to me. I don't know if that's, I guess if you're big enough, maybe that's what you need to do. I don't know. I think that you should get an actual incentive though for for having Patreon. Like that's actual support that you're getting from people that is specific to you outside of ad revenue from YouTube, and I think that is huge. So we'll see what happens here. But thank you so much for the comments here. This is extremely helpful, and I really appreciate it. Go ahead and leave up the live stream for another minute or so if anybody has any more questions, and we can keep on talking about those if they do appear. Otherwise, I'll go ahead and call it for this morning. But I really appreciate everybody being here. This is awesome. All right, Scylla has a question or comment here. She says, "Sweet, thank you." Yeah, I know it's not super helpful now. I wish I could show it to you because I was quite proud of my organization on that one because everything was in the box and no lid lift. It was good stuff. For Patreon, banter is what keeps me coming back to content creators. I support One Stop Co-op Shop because they do a lot of solo playthroughs. Okay, that's good to know. But the playthroughs aren't as interesting if I don't enjoy the people in the video. That's fair. I mean, that's the whole point of, if you like the guy, hopefully you put him on Patreon. Otherwise, if you don't, why are you supporting on Patreon? So that's good. So just constant conversation, the banter, the talk throughs. That's good. So they do solo playthroughs on Patreon. Is it live? Are you able to interact with them? Do you often get to talk to people on Patreon? That's pretty cool. I like it. Mom Gamer says, I support a number of people. The least I can do is a thank you. Oh, that's awesome. That's so cool. So this is really good information. I'm glad I'm getting these multiple perspectives from you people. Not you people, my viewers. Thank you so much. This is good stuff though. And I really appreciate this. This is good stuff to know. I don't know this stuff. So this is awesome. So my goal is to make this channel the best for potential viewers. And this is great. Let's share this awesome stuff. Oh, okay. So Mom Gamer says solo playthrough would be a great Patreon exclusive. Okay, we could definitely do that. I literally play a board game at least every day. I play a board game every day, so this would definitely be something that could happen. Yeah, solo playthrough would be fine. I definitely wouldn't mind waking up a little bit early every day to do a solo playthrough recording. That'd be pretty fun. So we'll see what happens. Oh, thank you so much, Scylla. I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that you are. Thanks for supporting us. I really appreciate it. Oh, Die Guy. So you ask any recommendations on where to sell board games. So I actually did a video on this. I kind of walk through how I sell my board games. It's on my channel. I'll look for it in a second here. But right off the bat, the way that I sell majority of my board games is through Facebook. So I really don't like dealing with shipping. So I actually take a big loss on most of my board games that I sell because I am under the opinion that I need to just move them. So that's my whole thing, is I try to move the games as fast as possible because I just don't want to deal with it. It's really not worth it, in my opinion, dealing with shipping or dealing with the constant communication. I just want to be done with it. So I use Facebook Marketplace. I have Facebook Marketplace, and I also, if that doesn't work, I use, what else do I use? If it's like, no, that's really it. All I use is Facebook Marketplace or Facebook groups. So there's a local group here in Colorado that I'm a member of that basically I always give them first dibs on the games because I know a lot of those people, and some of those people are in my game groups. And so I'll say, hey, first dibs here, you can have this game. It's like 50% off usually. Like a set of games that I sold recently. I sold Red Rising, Tawatinsuyu, and Cantaloupe, and I sold them all three together. And these are like the deluxe editions. I always remove the sleeves though from any game that I sell. I always sell just whatever comes in the box. I sold all that for like $55, I think, which is extremely good deal because I think Tawatinsuyu was like 40 base price and the Red Rising Collector's Edition was like 40. So it's honestly just to get them out the door. If they don't sell on Marketplace usually does work. Marketplace works really well. You just put your entire list of games, pictures, and then people will message you. I always make sure that they're doing the pickup though, because I end up losing more money on gas and postage than anything else. So I don't think it's really worth traveling to sell games. So generally I'll have them come here, and it makes it super low effort on my part. They just drive up to my house, pick up the things, and then bounce, and it's super nice. So I really like that. That's how I get rid of games. So Facebook Marketplace, groups on Facebook, things like that. And yes, it is an amazing deal, Mom Gamer. That's how I roll. If you can, if you're part of those groups, MP3 people in Colorado, or Colorado Board Game Sales and Discussion, I think those are the two groups I use here in Colorado. And then I also just sell on Marketplace. So if you ever see it, that's what they are. So if you ever see me put a bad review on a game, or if you see that I'm not super thrilled with the game, it'll be on there. So yeah, that's a good one. Mom Gamer also has a comment here. So I hope that helped answer your question, Die Guy Games. If you have any more questions, I do have that video, and I'll see if I can go find it in a second here. So Mom Gamer says, there's one named Lunch and Lego, and the creator would do a live coverage making lunch and having it with his 5-year-old and playing Lego. That's adorable. That's super cool. And they have a great chat while doing so. Don't push myself too hard. Stay healthy. Thank you so much, Indra. You know, I actually do. This is fun for me. This is something that I really enjoy. And right now it's summer, so I have a lot of time to kind of explore and experiment and do stuff. I do start school back up in August, but I'm very fortunate where the majority of my work at school is during the school day. So once again, I'm an English as a second language teacher, so it's a lot of active translations and helping out with planning with teachers. I'll meet them in person. And when I do have homework that I bring home, luckily, it's something that I've kind of got a routine going where I can finish all that up in a quickly manner. And we do have some time at work to do some of our planning and stuff and grading. So it's very helpful. But a lot of that time I do use, I'm going to be pushing into the classroom to help out kids. So. But I'm usually able to manage stuff. And if you'll notice, that's a lot of the reason that my live streams are pretty early is because I'll wake up early to do things because I have the rest of the day that I got to be working, right? And yeah, it's good. I have a good routine, I think. I have in the morning, I do like recording. I wake up early to do all that stuff. And then I have my day that I work out. I'm working or I'm hanging out with my wife or having a great time during the summer here. And then after that, I'll go do some exercise of some sort. If I go to the gym, that's when I listen to my board game content. So I'll listen to the other YouTubers. And then after that, I'll do dinner and hang out and something. Usually, a lot of times we'll have games and we'll play games on that day. And that's fun. Or if we have people going for SideGame LLC, that's when we'll go for our game night hosting. So that's usually what happens. But thank you, Indra. I really appreciate it. Amazing deal. Yep. Lovely chat. I'm really happy. That sounds really fun. Something very laid back. Indra also says there's a huge Facebook group for selling trading board games. Yes. So there are so many ways to do this. And if you decide to ship your games, like if that's something you're okay with, then you can sell anywhere. Board Game Geek Marketplace is a great place to ship games. But once again, I lose so much on shipping and so much on the time. Like the time isn't worth it for me. That's why I use Facebook Marketplace, because I don't want to spend that extra time packaging and making things are safe, going to the post office. It's not worth it for me. So that's why I don't do the shipping. Michael Newsom says he loves teaching ESL. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, where did you teach, Michael? That's awesome. Yes, it is one of my favorite. This is my favorite job I've ever taught at. So I did special education in Hawaii, teaching there before this while I was getting my master's degree. And before that, I was just this was during undergrad, so I was working as like an after-school program coordinator. So that was pretty fun. So that's great. Oh, that's awesome, Michael. Awesome. And then Mom Gamer says English teacher as well. Awesome. Very cool. What grade do you teach? That's so cool. And Scylla says, is my wife my primary +1 for gaming? That depends, Scylla. So my wife is also a teacher. She works at a very high needs elementary school. And so she is quite busy majority of the school year. So during the school year, she's actually not my primary +1. So generally, during the school year, I do not do a lot of gaming with my wife, actually. If I do, it'll be when she has some time on the weekend, and maybe we'll play a game or two at home, a cooperative game, and just enjoy and chill. But generally, during the school year, she is very busy working. During the summer, though, she is my primary +1 forever. So I love the summer is my favorite part of the year because my wife is free and she's able to, we get to hang out all the time. It's super fun. Like right now, we're having a day where she's sleeping right now, but we have a day usually where we will, we'll go play some pickleball together, and then we'll go and play a game or two, make some food, and just enjoy the company of each other. I think we're going to stay up tonight and watch Loki when that comes out. So I'm excited. This is fun. But yes, Scylla, when she can play games, my wife is my primary +1. That's true. Otherwise, I'll go out and go to other people's houses and play games because she's working. So I don't really want to, disrupt her or do anything that would cause her to not be as efficient. Because the goal is to still enjoy and still have fun, but also respect her time and make sure that she's able to get her things done. Michael says, teaches math but prefers ESL. Favorite is the grammar and syntax. I think that's fantastic. My favorite is, I actually really like speaking. Speaking is my favorite part of ESL. I love script conversations. I love getting people involved in a conversation. It's just super fun. That's awesome. Yep, I really enjoy ESL. It's one of my favorite things. I also really like pushing into other classes and helping people achieve. I think one of my favorite things is all the new technology that we have now for instant translations. I think are really cool for kids that are just starting to speak. So getting them comfortable with accessing their curriculum is huge. I really like that. Scylla says, people rave about math trade. So math trade is really interesting. Once again, I think that I would prefer a math trade in person than I would online because I really don't want to deal with shipping, but it sounds fascinating. You kind of put your game into a pool and then it kind of like shuffles around until you get something that you actually want, which is kind of wild. So that's really cool. Mom Gaming says that is so sweet. Well, thank you so much. My wife is my favorite person on the planet. So it's pretty awesome. And then Scylla says she was an ESOL student. That's awesome. What's your L1, Scylla? What's your first language? That's so cool. How awesome. Glad to see it kind of come full circle. And Michael Newsom says, volunteered with an international center, primarily catered to university workers and their spouses. University Channel. That's awesome. That's really cool. So you work with a lot of older students, and that's fine. That's really cool. I used to live in Japan, and during that time, I did something very similar. I would volunteer at, well, not volunteer, I got paid for it, but I would work at these areas where there were a lot of elderly Japanese people that were working on their English to maintain it. And I thought that was really neat. So I really enjoyed that. Very, very cool. Scylla says, Spanish from Ecuador. How cool. One of my students is from Ecuador. I know that connection is extremely loose, but it's still cool nonetheless. How awesome. Do you live here in the States now, or do you live in Ecuador still? That's fantastic. I'm glad that you're able to enjoy multilingual things. That's just so cool. I love being multilingual. It's super fun. I actually speak Japanese, but the more time goes on, the more that I'm learning Spanish while working here. I've only had a couple of opportunities to work on my Japanese, so I am losing that. So that's unfortunately no good. And Michael says he loves helping students navigate American slang and regional colloquialisms. Yes. Oh, wow. Yeah, I can only imagine living in the South, all the colloquialisms. So that's fantastic. Oh, wow. So this is great. I love this conversation. Fantastic. Once again, I'll go maybe another couple of minutes. Let's go one more minute if you have any more questions. Otherwise, we are going to go ahead and wrap this up. I'm actually going to make an executive decision. I'm going to wrap it up now. But thank you so much. This has been a blast. Yeah, like, oh man, the time has flown by. This is awesome. But thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here and for being part of this conversation and really being a huge part of this conversation. Indra says, off to sleep, almost 2 a.m. here. Sorry we kept you up so late, Indra, but thank you for being here. And thanks so much for joining in on the conversation. But side game strong, everybody. See ya. Thank you again. Bye.